מן האדמה פירתה יפלטהו. יודע אשר בכל לב, מספרה כל נפלאותייך.
So welcome everyone. We're finishing up Parshah Toldot this week, and I decided to start off that way because it was 420, just perfectly timed. But here, welcome, Graham. How are you doing?
Pretty good, Ariel. How you doing today?
Well, yesterday was Thanksgiving, so I can't complain. I hung out with family, but excuse me, not really a whole lot.
Cool. No turkey hangover.
I had like a slice of turkey, but it wasn't like we just got takeout from somewhere, and I don't know. I'm a picky eater, so let's see okay, so we start here, but actually on that note, because also I don't really talk about it that much. But I do feel like it's important because it is something that I really struggle with, and I'm sure there's like a lot of other people as well. But I like my appetite. I really don't get hungry until like late at night, and it's like honestly I'm not 100% sure why, but it's probably something like neurological. It's like I don't know. It's definitely something that I want to learn more about because, well, on the bright side, I can manage to make myself hungrier by like chewing on cloves, and I found other things that help. But funny enough, cannabis doesn't really help with my appetite that much. But then again, it could just be because I use it so regularly. But for pain, anyway. So the reason I brought that up is because I'm actually going to make myself a sandwich in a moment, but I did want to get started sooner rather than later. Luckily, it's not a whole lot of stuff that we have to go over today because we got a bulk of it out of the way. But I am going to try to find something to start off with. Let's see. So where was I? Had something pulled up, but I cannot. Okay, here. So where we're starting off with, was this 27, 28? It is the beginning of part 6 of 7 of, what on earth are they trying to imply here? Oh, dear Lord. But basically where we left off with was Jacob deceiving his father into thinking that he was Esau, which I was actually talking about this with Graham before we started, that it is kind of strange if you think about it, that, again, this whole thing is, it's all narrative. That's the main thing to remember, that ultimately how much historicity is here, it's probably more so just mythic ancestry talking about stuff that the ancestors of the common ancestors could have done. But the thing I think is important to point out though is that technically Jacob bought his birthright. He bought it for the red stew, which some people I forget who I first heard this from, but basically that the red stew that Jacob could have been, that he could have. Well, first of all, it's just called the red stuff or the red stew, but later Jacob gives him lentils. So one theory is that he might have actually. This guy's a nutter, but I want to at least watch this later. Maybe even today. Who knows? This guy, total nutter. Also, I have to be honest, it's one thing if someone's just a messianic Jew. I'll admit, I have some family stuff that just, it makes me a bit uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, that's their prerogative. I just really have an issue when you have people who they try to make themselves look Orthodox when they're not. I don't know if that makes any sense. then again, I guess like you could say, oh well, I maybe look, have a, but like even then, like I admit that I'm not, Orthodox. Whereas in his, actually, I'm pretty sure this guy calls himself a rabbi. That's the reason why I'm so critical of him. It's like, I don't know. Sorry, this is just airing my, not even dirty laundry. It's just, I don't know.
I don't know. If they're dressed up as Orthodox for Halloween, I give them a pass.
No, he just. I mean, luckily he doesn't go with the whole thing, but like it's enough where someone who's not Jewish, it looks that way. Let's see.
Well, again, he sounds like it depends how proselytizing he is, but I don't have a problem with some of them that it's the oh, I'm Jewish and I'm also found Jesus. So I just put that on top of my Judaism. And it's like,
a huge testimony for the Jewish people. And it's fairly well known that in the early steps of gathering the
So yeah, look, so I constantly get targeted by the stuff. It just, so much of it feels exploitative. That's the thing.
Jews back to Israel, evangelical Christians had a tremendous part. And yet sometimes they tell me I support this thing or that thing, different kinds of organizations. My challenge to these friends, and maybe you're one of them, is that the best way to bless Israel is with Jesus. This is what our people
Record scratch.
well, at least the price is right for the donation.
truly need.
I mean, I'm sure there are lots of people who would like to ship their share of Jesus over to
Recently,
Israel.
we've received those 3 scrolls
𝐕𤅅𤄍𝒃𝐃.
of Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel that were handwritten in Poland in the early part of the 20th century, survived the Holocaust, and finally made their way back to Israel.
So that they could be owned by Christian Jews. I mean, I don't know. It just,
For us, this is something very emotional. And as we read them, particularly for us in these days, we're meditating on Ezekiel 37, the dry bones that have come together. They've gathered and there's flesh on them. We look around us in the state of Israel, we see this is happening. And so the first part of the prophecy of Ezekiel was fulfilled through the help
yeah, but if you read anything any way, you can get anything you want.
of Christians. Now we're at the cusp of the spiritual revival. And I'd like to ask
That
you,
does
you
make
understand
for a
on the
good religion, though.
sidelines as God is moving.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that does make for a good religion. It makes for an easier sell if you can get anything you want from for praying for it out of your scriptures.
So mightily in this tiny country, among this small group of people, or do you want to take part as God is going to bless the world once again from Israel to the ends of the earth? Will you stand with us in this task? Will you rise up with us in prayer and partnership to believe in God's promises of redemption and join hand in hand
Not if that means believing in Jesus.
and proclaiming the hope of Yeshua and become
Yeah, see, that's what I was afraid of.
one for Israel?
It's like, it's one thing to say, like, oh, let's stand together. Let's stand together under Jesus. It's like, okay, yeah, let's not. See what I mean?
What? That he's a Messianic Jew? Yeah.
No, but like how preachy he is.
Yeah. No, that's one of the things that I find interesting about Herod, that in a lot of ways he could kind of qualify as a Messiah, where he was anointed and, he was the anointed king and he did a lot of, fit a lot of the categories as well.
It's kind of arguable, though, because of the fact that he wasn't appointed by the Jews, he was appointed by Rome.
Right. And it's a question of just what makes the anointing, again, now you're becoming legalistic, and it's what makes the anointing legitimate and all that one. And to be fair, Herod was a Jew from birth. He just wasn't, he was just an Idumean Jew. Tank.
Yeah, you're right. Like legally speaking, like halachically speaking, he was a Jew.
In a lot of ways, it's you can understand some of his frustration as to why am I being rejected like I am when I've sat here and built the port, built the temple, given them all of this. I've basically been their shield against the Roman Empire, and why am I hated for that?
Ooh, sounds a bit like someone else. Ooh, one
Who you
second. Yeah,
who you thinking of?
his name
Ah,
rhymes with Jeebus.
no, it's like the character the character of Herod's a very interesting character. He's very complex, and you're only hearing various again the Josephus perspective on it. I'm not sure what else we have historically on Herod. I'm sure we have some other stuff. I don't know how much.
Sorry, one moment. I was just trying to make sure nothing like melted or burnt. Okay, let's see. Let's start with this and then I'll make my sandwich and then we'll be right.
Hello, everyone. Simon Jacobson here, and welcome to another episode of Biblical Characters Decoded. We're going to be speaking about Jacob and Esau of the Bible, the battle between good and evil. This program is dedicated by Lisa Hawkins in honor of her mother.
Also, let me get it started and then I'll come back here and then we can have comments on it. But for now, let's just watch it.
Sarah Rosen's yahrzeit. The best-selling book of all time is the Bible. It's such a big bestseller that it doesn't even hit any of the bestseller lists. How ironic, right? Well, there's a reason for it, because it's a book that goes back thousands of years and yet remains as timely as ever. Its stories, narratives, its characters, people find, reflect, and mirror our own lives. So we've been doing is this series, taking different biblical characters, addressing the core story and how it's relevant and meaningful in our personal lives with the different lessons, sometimes surprising ones that it provides. So let's talk about the classic battle between the twin brothers, Jacob and Esau, famous story in the Bible where Rebecca is carrying twins and she has a very difficult pregnancy. And she asks God, why is it so difficult? And God tells her, because you're carrying two nations within you, two nations, two archetypes, two forces, and they will be in perpetual struggle throughout their lives. And that's being reflected in your womb, the two brothers that would end up becoming Esau and Jacob. Now, both are children of Isaac and Rebekah, righteous people, the most righteous in history, and yet they were very antithetical to each other. Alter egos, you can say. And the story goes, they're born they look different, their personalities are different. And yes, they are in conflict. Their personality types, their attitudes. But I wouldn't call it just good and evil because that makes it too simple. It's actually two voices and two forces, like two nations, archetypes that are within each one of us. Because as I said, they're both children of great people. So it's hard to say that one was a cruel and wicked person, the other one was a tzaddik and a righteous one. They were two forces which can go in both directions. Jacob was known as Ish Tom Yoshev Ahalim. He was the innocent one, the scholar, the wholesome one. He spent time studying. Esau is described as a warrior, a hunter, a person who knew the guile and all the shrewdness of hunting in this world. Now, they seem to be antithetical, of course, to each other, but when you think about it, it's actually two forces within each one of us. We both have the voice of survival, where we need to go to war, where we need to protect ourselves, where we need to defend ourselves against the elements and against the different hostile forces that exist out there. And then there's the other one inside of us, you can say the scholar, the transcendent voice that focuses on spiritual ideals, the aspirations, the dreams that each of us has. And they are in constant conflict. Who will dominate? Which voice will be the one that you follow? Is it the voice of self-interest? Is it the voice of transcendence? And just to spell it out in real specific detail, most of our lives in this material world, we are busy with surviving. What that means is eating, drinking, grooming, personal life, our pleasures, sexuality, entertainment, work. I mean, a third of our lives, almost a third at least, we're asleep. 1/3. If you sleep 8 hours a day, 8 hours a night, that's 1/3 of the day, of the 24-hour day. But even if you sleep less than that, if you think of it, most of the day we are focusing on existing or surviving. And then there's another voice within each of us, which is that we're not satisfied with animal bliss, with just hunting and with surviving, but we also search for something transcendent, which means something that is beyond just the existence. And that is satisfied in many different ways. For some people, it's through literature, art, music, romance, love, travel. For many, it's through religion, faith, spirituality. I mean, there are many different outlets, but it's very clear that we're not satisfied just with making it. And that, in a way, you can say is the difference between the body and the soul. The body and its bodily needs, the physical needs, and the soul and its spiritual needs. Sometimes, like a beautiful analogy to describe these two forces is like, think of it like a flame and a wick. You just look at a flame. So in the book of Proverbs, he tells us that the soul of a human being is a divine flame. A flame is the closest approximation to what your soul looks like. It's constantly flickering, so it's restless, a healthy restlessness, a certain healthy angst, dreaming, aspiring, yearning, longing, which is so much the hallmark of what makes us human. But then there's the wick that grounds us. The wick is the grounding part, which is like more the bodily, the physical side of it. And they need each other, because if a person was just satisfy their spiritual needs, they can basically expire and lose touch with being in this world. On the other hand, to be completely consumed with materialism and our own self-interest is perhaps even worse. So it's a constant struggle. It's a constant battle between flame and wick, and it's about creating a balance. In the Kabbalistic and mystical tradition, the way you create the balance and how do you relieve the tension between matter and spirit, you relieve it by spiritualizing the material. There are schools of thought that talk about asceticism, about just cutting yourself off, going to a mountain, and just getting out of the rat race and the Wall Street rush, and just living in a very austere and simple life. There are others that say, no, in material life, you can find a way of thinking of the Protestant work ethic and other examples of that. But there's a third school of thought, and that is the Jewish mystical school of thought that teaches that there's an absolute ability to integrate the two. And that's based on a critical principle, the principle that life is neither matter nor spirit. Those are two forces, but there's a third dimension that transcends both. In other words, a level that transcends transcendence. And there, it comes down to a fusion between matter and spirit, between matter and energy, where we actually spiritualize our material lives. We don't escape from it. We don't see it as a necessary evil or something you can't avoid. You see it as an opportunity, in the words of the Kabbalists, to redeem and reveal the divine sparks, the spiritual sparks that exist within everything in this material world. So in that context, Jacob and Esau actually are twins. They both need each other, with Esau representing more the body and the physical side of it, and Jacob representing the soul and the spirit. And they need each other. The body is the vehicle, and the soul is the captain of the ship. And they need to speak to each other and need to integrate with each other. The problem is that they have their own interests. At the surface level, at least ostensibly, soul and body don't necessarily want to work well with each other because they have very different goals. The soul is seeking transcendence, seeking higher purpose, seeking meaning in life, and the body is seeking self-pleasure, seeking fulfillment of its own desires and its temptations and whatever its impulses direct us toward. Sometimes this battle can be compared to the battle between mind and heart, where the emotions They're not bad necessarily, but emotions are impulsive. They follow what your emotions, your subjective interests. The mind, on the other hand, a healthy mind, is a reflective force. So when something comes your way, how do you determine whether it's the right thing to do or not to do? So in a healthy human being, you let your heart speak, but then you have the mind checking and saying, 1 second, reality check, and reflecting, is this healthy for you? It may appear very tempting and may be very seductive, but the mind, in a sense, reflects and reviews and evaluates. And then it can say to the heart, this seems right. You meet someone, you go on a date, or any other type of interaction. So initially, you may have all kinds of different things that attract you to someone, but your mind is meant to balance that and say, 1 second, we have to know whether this is the right person for me, or am I just physically attracted or sexually attracted? Is there more going on? Someone calls you on a telemarketer, calls you, and they're very good at manipulating your emotions. And they tell you, here's the deal of the century, and you have to make a decision immediately. Why immediately? Because they know if you think about it too much, you may not do it. So they're trying to manipulate and trying to get your emotions connected to it. And that's when we make most of our mistakes in life, where we react impulsively to things. Most mistakes would be avoided if you let yourself sleep on it. You know, right now you're attracted to something, or you're repulsed by something, or repelled by something. Wait overnight. Wait a few hours. I mean, how many emails have I written in the moment of anger or getting upset? And then I said, you know what, before I send it, let me think about it. And you wake up the next morning, you read it, and you say, it was good that I wrote it, I vented, but it's better not to send it. Or if you make the decision it's the right thing to do, at least you're doing it deliberately. So emotions are critical in life because that's really where life plays itself out. You have to have a ship, but you need a captain of the ship. You can't just allow the impulses in every given situation to control the situation. Because now, at times when there's an emergency, obviously you have to follow your impulse, immediate impulse, because there's no time to waste. But a healthy person is someone that the mind is very much part of even in an emergency, you also want to have your head about you and not just react, because you can also create more problems than solve. So the key thing is to have balance. And in many ways, Jacob and Esau represent these two. Now, let's make it clear. This doesn't mean each of them exclusively is body and soul. They both, of course, have both dimensions, but the focus in each one of them is one or the other. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you read the story between Jacob and Esau, you wonder, so how do we ultimately resolve this issue? When there are the two different interests here, the interest of hunting, the warrior within us that needs to win, and needs to compete, and the other side, the more gentle, spiritual, transcendent voice within us. So the interesting thing, which seems so odd, more than odd, seems so unethical in a way, you find the story that Jacob actually buys the birthright from Esau. He gives him a broth of that. Then Esau was extremely hungry after he was hunting that day, and he says, "I'll give it to you if you allow me to buy from you the birthright." And he does that. Then later, when Isaac, their father, wants to bless Esau, the firstborn, so Jacob, at his mother's encouragement and direction, actually dresses in the garments of Esau and fools his father into giving him the blessings, which seems extremely odd for a person that we call wholesome, scholar, transcendent. That seems very selfish and very unethical, actually. But there's a deep story here that really teaches us a methodology of how to relieve the battle between matter and spirit, and ultimately between good and evil, and create a complete harmony between the two. And here it is with a beautiful analogy from the Baal Shem Tov, the great mystic, the founder of the Hasidic movement, 18th century mystic, the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. And he says the following. He says that a king, giving an analogy, who's aging and ailing, and he wanted his son to become his heir to the throne, but he knew that his son had grown up in the palace, spoiled, always catered to, always taken care of. And he was wondering whether his son is really worthy and sensitive enough to be an appropriate leader. So the king decided to do something which was very painful, but necessary. He sends his son, he says, I'll send my son away from the palace where he doesn't live in an environment where everyone knows who he is and therefore caters to him and takes care of him. And he has to make it on his own. So he'll become a sensitive human being and sensitive to the subject. So when the day comes that he's a leader, he'll be the right and righteous and appropriate leader. So the day finally comes, he tells his son, I want to send you away. It's not easy for me to do, but it's important for you to create, to train and season you to be able to be the appropriate and sensitive leader that you should be. Now the king says to him, look, I'm sure that once you leave this place, in the beginning it will be difficult, but slowly you'll get used to your ways, and you may even forget where you come from. So I'm going to send you a letter several times a year to remind you that you're my son, and you've been sent there to be trained, to be groomed, to be that sensitive leader that we're looking for. Okay, the day comes, the sad day comes, he sends his child away, all with the good intentions. And yes, he goes to some far distant city in the kingdom, and time passes, and in time he assimilates and gets accustomed to his ways, where he's not being treated in any special treatment. He's not the prince. He's just another guy, a person in the street, and has to make it on his own. But as the king promises him, every little while he receives a letter from his father and tells him, remember who you are. Remember why you're there. When he receives the letter, suddenly he reminds himself, he had long forgotten, and he wants to celebrate. The problem is, what is he going to tell his neighbors, the other townspeople? What is he going to say? I will be your future king. I'm really the prince. Either they won't believe him, or they'll think he's crazy, or they may even hurt him. So he comes up with a brilliant idea. What is the idea? He'll throw a party, free food and drink, free cocktails on me. Now, a party, who rejects a party? Everybody participates, and everybody's partying. Beautiful food, great drinks, great company, socializing. One big party. While they're celebrating their free party, he meanwhile is celebrating the letter that he received from his father. Says the Baal Shem Tov, this is an analogy. The king is the divine, the higher reality, which we call the essence of it all, God. Every one of our souls is the prince or princess. But when we live in heaven, in spiritual realms, without any challenges, we can get spoiled. We cannot appreciate our gifts because everything is taken care of. There's no difficulties. There are no setbacks. There's no pain. There's no suffering. There's no health issues. There's no livelihood. There's money issues. So God says, the king says, I want to send the soul into this material world, a hostile world, a world where the soul has to make it on its own, so to speak. I will give it strength, but it has to make it. It can't be just seen that it's like the prince or the princess in the palace. So the soul comes into this world, and we're made to forget the spiritual consciousness and higher awareness where we originate from. But several times a year, or maybe once a week, on the Shabbat or other times, holidays, we receive a letter. We receive a spiritual message from on high telling us, why are you here? You're here to spiritualize this material world. Never forget your mission. It's gotten used to the body. It's gotten used to this material world. It's gotten accustomed to it. And we see ourselves as physical beings, maybe on a spiritual journey, but not as spiritual beings on a physical journey. So what does the soul do? So the soul, great idea. We'll throw a party, make a holiday meal, a Shabbat meal. We have good drinks and good food. You rest more, you're more socializing. So the body goes along because why not? Hey, it's getting everything it needs. It's getting delicious new food, fresh food, intriguing food, delicacies. So while the body is celebrating on its terms, the soul is celebrating the deeper spiritual message of its personal mission in life. In other words, in this material world, if you want to spiritualize the material world, you can either go to battle with it and try to vanquish it or overwhelm it, or asceticism, as I mentioned before, where you just avoid it, or the third option is to engage with it on its terms, just like you teach a child. Here's a candy if you study well, if you say thank you. The candy obviously is just an incentive. The child will grow older, will realize that was just a way of teaching the value of being a good person. So we educate the body on its terms and say, fine, it's good. Being a good person is good also materially. It's also good for you. So the animal within us, the animal soul within us, the Esau within us is thanking. I'm getting good food. I'm getting a good broth. Jacob dressed up in the garments of Esau means that the soul dresses up in the garments of the material world. And on its terms, it explains that it's good for you as well. That's what a good marketing and salesperson does. That teaches us that it's also good for us. So while the body is celebrating, the material world is celebrating its benefits, the soul can really celebrate the real truth behind it all. So they're really two partners, two twins, a twin set of twins, all doing one job. That was really the goal. So when you read the story, the deeper part of the story, you realize it's actually the formula for harmony between matter and spirit, between body and soul, between the inner and the outer, between form and function, to create one fusion. And that's the story of our lives, because we too have these two voices. Every moment of your life, you have two choices. Are you going to do something for yourself, or are you going to do something for others? Is it self-interest driven? Is it egocentric? Or is it God-centric? Is it driven by what you need right now? Or is it driven by the higher purpose of your life? And you wake up in the morning, you could say, I'll sleep another half hour. No, I'm going to get up to help somebody, to volunteer. You make money. Will I share some of that money in a charitable and kind way? You're talented, or you have other gifts. Are you going to use it just for your own needs, or also share? This is the battle between the Jacob and Esau within us.
Almost
We're
right.
not asking you to give up the material world. We're not asking you to destroy it. We're not asking you to avoid it. We're saying you can spiritualize it. Teach matter and the physical world to align itself, that it's also in your interest. Transcendence. Transcendence is not just for the soul, it's also for the body. But the body has to be trained. Just like you have to teach a young child from young age, you have to train the child on its terms. So as a young child, you do it for the ulterior motives. Just like when you teach an idea, you have to dress it up in examples and analogies and metaphors. You're not compromising the idea, you're simply putting it into terms that someone can understand. And as they get older, they can strip it from those analogies and come to understand, that's what you meant. And that's the ultimate goal. So at the end of the day, even though these two forces can turn into good and to evil, but it's not purely just that. It's about really integrating and recognizing that they both are parts of one reality. And ultimately, Jacob and Esau, the end of their story is that they will join together. It takes time. As we refine the material world and we refine our own material physical lives, we turn it into a vehicle for spiritual growth and spiritual transcendence. And that will be the day, what we call the Messianic age, when they will join together, body and soul, matter and spirit, form and function, in one dance, one harmony, and one synthesis, where they both are focused on the third dimension, which is neither body nor soul, that transcends even transcendence, a reality that is able to integrate the two because it comes from a place that's greater than the two. So, my friends, each of us has this choice every given moment in our lives. And Jacob and Esau teach us. They are essentially reflections of these two archetypes within each one of us, meant to be twins, true twins, that end up reconciling, and not just reconciling, but complementing each other in that great harmony. So thank you for listening. This has been Simon Jacobson, Biblical Characters Decoded. Please go to meaningfullife.com, where you could see this program and many others, a full, robust schedule of events and subjects that cover every topic from A to Z. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, your comments, your questions, and please share it as we try to accomplish this particular goal, which is to create a ripple effect where we actually transform this material world and turn it into a spiritual oasis, a spiritual garden. Be well.
I was going to say, in his story, the character was pretty much the anti-Buddha. Where in Buddha's case, the father tried to keep him away from leaving the palace, and in this case, he basically says, "No, no, you got to go there and have prince to pauper sort of thing. Only you got to do it, and there's no exchange."
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Second thought was that whole getting the communities together for an activity reminded me of the Inca, and I think it was the culture before them as well. They would get the various cultures they would conquer, get them together and make beer together. And that would be their way of throwing a party together, and that was their way of unifying their culture. And the last one is, I don't know how somebody just goes, it seems deceptive about taking the birthright from the way he did. It's like, no, there's nothing seeming about it. It was deceptive. It's a question of how you whether you can justify that deception, or how you the messages and lessons you take away from the event. Tag.
I mean, again, it's based on pluriform interpretation, because there is an interpretation that the reason why there was nothing wrong with it was because when Jacob bought the birthright, the reason why Esau was willing to sell it wasn't because he was just hungry and that he was saying that he was starving to death, but that he was saying that, what's the birthright to me if I'm going to die, implying that like it's not like a physical but like a spiritual birthright. And again, it is just an interpretation. It's definitely apologetic, but like on a certain level, it's one of those things where it's like what he did, you could argue was, I mean, I definitely say it was immoral, but was it illegal, like by the standards of their society?
Oh no, it's the first event is more of an example of basically getting Jacob getting Esau into a bad deal, getting him to sign a bad contract.
Yeah,
That is a little, you can argue that's deceptive, but that's a little, what happened with Rachel and Jacob and
that's deception.
yeah, that's the one. There's nothing seemingly deceptive about it, because the argument of, well, if he had sold the birthright, why didn't he just tell Jacob, tell Isaac about it, so that the right person could intentionally get the right blessing? Again,
Yeah.
it's it being done behind Isaac's back is where, I don't see how you can argue that it's not deceptive. How the lesson you take of it and whether that deception was justified or not, and how you do that, that's where you're spinning it, and that's where the interesting pluriform interpretation parts come in. But I don't see how you can argue that it wasn't deceptive. Peg.
Yeah. Ooh, what's this? No, I think no. This is just. Why is there got to be so much kookery? Let's see.
Well, I was going to say, I can't reject that right out the box.
No,
All those mountains, all those mountains, people don't know where they really are.
If you're ever going
it's not that. It's the way they present it.
to visit Jordan,
Oh.
you know you are going to visit here. This is Petra. We have walked down a way between cliffs, very narrow, very easy to protect, and we've come to this first building, which is called the Treasury. I don't know why, it shouldn't be. It was probably the tomb of a rich person back in the time, and after that it was probably used as a temple until this area got forgotten about. But the thing that actually thrills me when I look at that building is it's carved into the rock, and the skill that the Nabateans must have had to actually carve that out. If you put it in a context, if you go back to the Roman pillars or the Greek columns, if you made your column and made a mistake,
Oh yeah,
it
one
was
mistake.
costly, but it wasn't disastrous.
You mess the whole
If
thing
you're
up.
carving this out and you make a mistake, then it's there for eternity. And it's there for eternity now because the tourists are coming through at this time of year, early in the spring, about 3,000 a day. In the height of the season, 13,000 a day. And at the height of the Nabateans, there was probably about 20,000 people living here. And living here because it was a safe place. It was a place easy to protect. There's only really that one channel to get in. And if the enemy's coming, you're up on the top with the rocks. And yes, this was a safe place for very many years. It was also a safe place in the biblical thought in terms of who lived here. This was the home of Esau and his descendants, the Edomites. When Esau and his brother Jacob separated and their flocks grew too big and actually they weren't that friendly as brothers anyway, so it was maybe better to be apart for a while. Esau came this way and settled here and had a safe place. And even when the Israelites were coming through the desert on their way to the promised land, God clearly said to them, this is Esau's territory. This is where the Edomites live. You go through here very carefully, very respectfully. And that's what we're still doing today, coming through here respectfully, looking at the skill of these people. I mean, this was built, this has nothing to do with the Bible. The area here in the Bible was called Selah, and that's where Esau lived. That was the other name. You see it a number of times in Genesis. But it actually come, in a sense, to be here where Esau and his descendants were, to recognize that the Israelites on their 40-year struggle passed through here. They spent a time in the plains, and then God said to them, you need to go through the mountains of Selah, and this is the area they passed through. Just to live and recount that biblical history, that narrative, is impressive to me. The skill of the people, the history of the people, the fact that God protected his people through battles, through difficulties, through journeys in this area.
So the fun thing with the serpent is, how does a serpent talk? And not only that, but why is the serpent's punishment?
The Edomites, who lived in the region of modern Jordan and southern Israel, are an almost forgotten ancient kingdom. Today, this area is known for the famous UNESCO World Heritage and Archaeological Site of Petra, the Rose Red City. Now, the Hebrew word Edom means red and relates to the name of its founder, Esau, the firstborn son of the patriarch Isaac and his wife Rebekah. Isaac and Rebekah had twin sons, and the brothers had a tumultuous relationship from birth. The Hebrew Bible tells us that Esau was a hunter, while his twin brother Isaac helped his mother around the home tent. As a young adult, Esau sold his firstborn birthright to the family inheritance to his brother Jacob for a bowl of red pottage. This caused friction between the brothers, and the Bible tells us that the nations of the Edomites, the descendants of Esau, and the Israelites, the descendants of Jacob, often clashed. These conflicts between Israel and Edom, Babylon and Egypt are recorded in the Bible. In fact, Edom and the Edomites are mentioned some 130 times in the Bible. Some of the more well-known ones are: 1. God blessed Esau because he was a descendant of Abraham. So Esau dwelt in Mount Seir. This was the land to the south and east of the Dead Sea, and became known as the land of Edom. 2. There was enmity between Esau and Jacob. 3. The Israelites had been traveling through the wilderness from Egypt to the Promised Land. But when the Israelites asked the Edomites if they could travel through their land, they were refused passage. 4. In the days of Saul, Edom was controlled by Israel. 5. King David had a military victory over Edom and established garrisons in Edom. 6. The Edomites revolted and became independent of Israel. 7. The prophet Jeremiah spoke against Edom. 8. Mount Seir was the center of the Edomites, and the prophet Ezekiel said, "Set your face against Mount Seir on the eastern side of the Jordan River." 9. The prophet Amos spoke against Edom for pursuing Israel with the sword. 10. The prophet Isaiah spoke about vengeance against the
I think
nation
it's
of
clearly
Edom.
out of rivalry.
And finally, 11. Obadiah, the minor prophet, prophesied that Edom would be destroyed. The Nabateans conquered the Edomites around 312 BC, and now the region is mostly occupied by Bedouins and military outposts. The Edomites were a prominent and important nation during Bible times. Unfortunately, though they were neighbors and relatives of the Israelites, there was often animosity between them. If you would like to read more about the stories of the Edomites and the Israelites, then I'd like to recommend the free gift we have for you today. It's the Incredible Journey Bible Reading Plan. Just go to the Incredible Journey website, tij.tv, or scan the QR code on the screen to request your free Bible reading plan now.
I'm just going to eat a bit and then we'll start. So,
Yeah, that's one of those. The extinction of the Edomites, I think, was greatly overblown.
what do you mean?
Oh, I think they just basically, for the most part, got renamed the Idumeans. I'm not sure there was any real break in continuity between the two groups.
Are there
Just
people
more of a. Go ahead.
Are there people who think there is?
Oh yeah, that was basically what he was saying. There was that the Nabateans conquered the Edomites in like 170 BC, basically about the time of the Maccabees.
No, but does anyone claim that the Edomians aren't the Edomites?
Yeah, he was basically saying that they're not. He was basically saying a new group came in and conquered them. That was all.
Let's see. Yeah, but like I've never heard people try to claim that Idumean isn't Edom. I mean, like if Herod was an Idumean and we know he was an Edomite.
Well, what they're trying to say is there's a difference between an Idumean and an Edomite. Sort of like there's a difference between a
Judean and a Jew.
And a Canaanite.
Let's see. It's a good sandwich.
What was it, grilled cheese?
Basically. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Let's see. Let's see. Let's check this out.
I want to quickly share what for me has been a hugely positive habit, and that's speaking to a therapist using BetterHelp. I've spoken in the past pretty openly about how I really struggled in my second year of university, putting tons of pressure.
In the Talmud, it says that right before Mashiach comes, things are going to get really, really bad, and things are going to be at their worst. And it says that right before he arrives, chutzpah is going to become widespread and commonplace. Worldwide, there's going to be an unprecedented amount of disrespect and unbridled audacity and just plain old chutzpah. Additionally, says the Talmud, that right before Mashiach comes, nobody will accept anybody else's criticism. We will have created such a culture and such a society where nobody will accept anybody's criticism or anybody's critique. Third, says the Talmud, that right before Mashiach comes, anyone or anything truthful and authentic will be very hard to come by and will be very scarce, because everybody and everything will have become fake and superficial and artificial and just phony. And number 4, says the Talmud, that before Mashiach comes, the youth will no longer respect their elders. The young generation will have no respect for and no regard for the older generation. And number 5 says the Talmud that before Mashiach comes, the government will turn to heresy. The government will undermine God and all religious values. And number 6 says the Talmud.
Wait, when has the government ever not been heretical?
Well, I was going to say, when have the children ever not disrespected the parents?
That right before Mashiach comes, there will be a sore lack of leadership, and we will have no true leaders. And all the leaders that we have will resemble dogs. And the Talmud says that when you see all of these things, when you see all these things, all these terrible things happening all around you, you should know that it's a sign that Mashiach is about to come. Mashiach is about to come through the door.
Yeah, look at all the politicians begging for table scraps from the corporations. That's pretty dog-like, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, sheep-like would also fit for him as well.
More like wolf in sheep's-like clothing.
Oh, definitely.
Mashiach is about to arrive. And there are 2 ways to look at it. Why is it that specifically when we hit such a low, specifically when things get so bad and so out of hand, that's when Mashiach's going to come? And the first, very basic, very simple way to look at it is that when things get so bad, when things become so desperate, when we hit such a low, so God has, so to speak, no other choice but to play his trump card and to bring Mashiach and to save the day. But the second, very revolutionary way to look at it is that this low, which the Talmud describes, and this terrible state of affairs worldwide, which the Talmud describes, is actually the smoothest and the most natural transition into the era of Mashiach. And you should look at all of human history like a circle. And when the world was first created, when the world was beautiful and pure and perfect, that was like a taste of Mashiach. But then with the first sin of Adam and Eve, we fell and we got a little bit further from that perfect state of existence. And then as time went on, with every additional sin, we got further and further and further away from that state of perfection until now, at the end of human history, at the end of Gullus in 2020, at the end of the circle, we are at the opposite extreme. We are at our lowest point. We are at the furthest point from the perfection where the world started at. On the other hand, though, the end of the circle brings you full circle and leads you right back into and brings you back to the beginning of the circle, brings you back into a state of perfection, brings you and leads you into the state of Mashiach. Because in general, always 2 extremes in a circle. And
it's almost like entropy theory, right?
Well, I was going to say he's also echoing a lot of the Vedic stuff with the various different yugas. And I was going to say the explanation I always thought that resonated well is, well, when you get to the bottom, there's no place to go but up. So.
Oh, you know what that reminds me of? I mean, I know that you weren't a kid when this show was popular, but did you ever watch SpongeBob?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you know the episode where they end up in like rock bottom or bedrock or whatever it's called?
I don't know if I remember that one specifically, but go ahead with the story.
It's like with the anglerfish and like it's super dark, remember?
Okay, yeah.
I don't know, it just kind of reminds me of that, like they're literally at the bottom of the ocean.
Again, in finances, it's what they call in market is what they call the dead cat bounce. It's like even though something's a stock's worthless, it's going to hit bottom and then come up a little bit before it finally settles to nothing.
Interesting.
2 extremes, while they're going to be polar opposites and while they're going to be opposite extremes, and therefore they're not going to resemble each other at all, and they're going to be total opposites from each other. 2 extremes always share many similarities and have a lot of things in common. And that's why one extreme will always bounce back into another extreme. And just to explain a little bit why this low is going to lead us into Mashiach, because if you look at 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 300 years ago, and really with the start of the so-called Enlightenment movement, which is where the seeds of atheism began to be planted and where the ideas and the ideology and the agenda of atheism really began to take root and take off.
The Romans would argue that was Judaism.
And become adopted. And that's when people started to really reject God and started to reject the Torah and started to reject religious values. So at that time, the movement and the ideology and the agenda of atheism and the revolutions and changes they were calling for seemed very appealing, seemed very attractive, seemed very cool, very sophisticated, very with it, very modern, very amazing and appealing and attractive. Mainly because the people spreading these ideas and the people spewing these ideas and the people adopting these ideas, they themselves were very intelligent people, very cultured people, very smart people, very well-mannered people, very well-behaved people, very upright and upstanding people, and they were leading cool, attractive, upstanding lives. And therefore, everything about this movement and everything about the lifestyle it was calling for seemed amazing, seemed attractive, seemed appealing, seemed modern, seemed sophisticated.
I mean, to be fair, so was Count Dracula, like the real one, but that doesn't mean that he was, a good person. Being high class doesn't mean shit if you're a terrible person.
No, but it does mean you have some style. Tag.
Oh, is it kind of like how there's the people who are like, oh, well, I don't agree with what the Nazis did, but at least they look cool. It's like, dude, fuck off. There's much cooler uniforms than that.
No, I definitely agree. I was going to say the Nazis loved their medals. I'll give them that much. They could come up with a medal for anything. But that's kind of a German tradition.
Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that the coolest uniforms are clearly the Roman Empires. I'm joking. No, I don't know. I think
I kind of like the red coats because, they got a certain amount of, like they say, chutzpah there, where when you're painting yourself as this giant bright red target for everybody to shoot at, that certain has amount of, I'm better than you projecting on it.
I mean, also, you know how they got the red coats, right?
I heard the story, but I forget it off the top of my head.
Lots of crushed bugs.
That's some of those South American red dye farming.
Central
Yeah. And South.
Central and Southwest North America.
And that's why so many people adopted it. It's only now in 2020 when the ideology and the agenda of atheism has been taken to its full conclusion, has been taken to its natural conclusion. Only now is it becoming obvious for the first time to anybody with a brain in their head.
See, one of the things that, like, on one hand, like, obviously, I don't think, I think it's ridiculous to suggest that people would think this just because they're atheist. But I do feel like one of the things that if people deconstruct, like, down enough, they can end up getting to the result of, like, the only thing that matters is the present, and by extension, that only that which, like, be almost like justifying that those who aren't alive now, even if they suffered in the past, that it's fine because they're no longer suffering, and that, like, oh, well, you can't experience it now. Like, I don't know, that's just a really disturbing thought to me that I feel like could become more normalized in the next 100 years. Like, does that make any sense?
Yeah, I was going to say, I would say it's pretty much normalized right now. There's a certain amount of, if I'm not experiencing the pain doesn't count. So therefore, if other people get hurt in the process, in the present even, it doesn't matter to me.
Or not even necessarily like that, but like where they like lie to themselves and convince themselves that they actually do care about the other person, and that, as long as, like, it's in the past, that they're no longer suffering. Like, I don't know, it's just especially with, like, the stuff that's been happening in Canada with a push for for the, was it medical assistance and dying for people who aren't terminally ill. Like, I don't know. It just, stuff like that really, really gets to me because it's like, it's just so cruel.
I don't necessarily have as huge a problem against the person deciding on the suicide that way.
No,
It's when the government can force somebody who isn't sick to get, assisted suicided.
so
I see that more as public execution.
that's kind of what's happening now, because a lot of people, their insurance doesn't want to cover their medical costs, and so there's being this push to get people to do it. I'm not talking about people choosing to do it, because I get that. I mean, I don't personally get it, but like I can empathize with that. But I'm talking about like an actual incentive by governmental organizations to get people to do that.
So sort of a reverse mortgage on your life and you pay it off to your heirs?
Huh? Can you explain that? I might be a bit too tired for this.
Well, you know how reverse mortgage works, where you sell the house now, you get the money now, but you basically continue to live in the house for as long as you're alive. And it's like I said, it's basically they're getting paid up front to end their life as opposed to life insurance at the end.
I don't even know if they're getting. I don't know if that. I don't even know if there's an incentive for it so much as like just they're being pressured into it.
Oh, okay. I was going to say the incentive, I think, would make it. I don't know if that would make it better or worse if they were getting a financial incentive to end their life.
I think it would honestly make it better, but it would still be just as horrible, maybe just a tiny bit less.
It's pretty immoral regardless of how you slice it.
Oh, 100%. It's kind of like saying, like, you know, you can be deep in the ocean and then you can have someone who's like a few feet above you, but that doesn't mean that they're not deep in the ocean.
Yeah. Which drink would you like tonight? Strychnine or hemlock?
Honestly, I feel like hemlock would be less painful.
Yeah, but it's like you keep asking, well, could I just have maybe water?
I get your point. I get your point. But still, the point remains that strychnine's much more painful.
Oh, agreed. And with the hemlock, we're now back to Socrates, who had to drink the hemlock because he was preaching atheism.
Yeah. Oh, going back to atheism. But the funny thing is, hemlock, and again, don't do it, but apparently in certain dosages, people like can actually take it. But like, I don't know. It seems like anything that can potentially kill you at such a low dosage, you shouldn't be messing with.
Agreed. Definitely it's not something best with at random.
How dangerous.
Best what?
Not to get messed with at random. Only if you know exactly what you're doing. And how evil and how insidious the atheistic agenda is and the atheistic ideology is. And that if you take God out of the picture, if you take God out of our schools and out of our society will begin to collapse, our society will begin to crumble. And everything will become twisted, everything will become convoluted, everything will become backwards and become twisted. And our thinking will become twisted, our values will become twisted, up will become down, down will become up, good will become bad, bad will become good, light will become dark, dark will become light. And people won't be able to think straight anymore. People will become brain dead, society will become brain dead, and society will become morally bankrupt. And therefore, the greatest and strongest arguments for Mashiach, the greatest and strongest argument for a godly world, for a Torah world, for a Mashiach world based on the values of Torah and Chassidus is actually a world totally devoid of God, totally devoid of Torah values, totally devoid of religious values. Because in such a world, when society and life becomes so empty and so meaningless and so convoluted and so backward and so twisted, anyone standing there, anyone looking around, anyone with a brain in their head, anyone with eyes, just has to take one look and they'll be like, ugh, this is so backwards, this is so twisted, this is so convoluted, this is so disgusting, this is so unsustainable. We don't want this anymore. We want Mashiach. We want Mashiach to come. We want Mashiach to implement the Mashiach vision and the Geula vision and to build a new world based on the values of Torah, based on the values of Chassidus, to build the Mashiach world. And therefore, when Mashiach arrives and Mashiach shows up in 2020, when Mashiach stands on the roof of the Beis Mikdash, he's going to get a standing ovation. Everyone is going to come running to him. Everyone's going to come flocking to him. Everyone's going to say, Mashiach, please, we're going to beg him to implement the Geula vision, to implement Mashiach's vision, and to build a new Mashiach world, a perfect world, based on the vision of Torah, based on the vision of Chassidus, a godly world, a beautiful world. So Mashiach now, God bless you and have a wonderful day.
Build your brand online with a beautiful
Mashiach now. Okay, let's see. So let me just find one more thing and we'll get started. Oh, right. There is, what was this? What happened when
I was going to say, from what he's saying there, one, I'm kind of curious where I can get some of these Mashiach vision glasses. They sound pretty cool.
Oh, no, I think it's like one of those, like, was it, you know, those plastic things that you hold up to your, you know what I mean? Like the Viewmaster.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like, you know, like 3D glasses for when you go to the movies. Yeah,
Nah.
but the other one was to hear what he's saying is it sounds like if you want Mashiach to come, you need to actively be making the world worse, because if the world is too good, Mashiach won't come. That seems to be a logic underlying what he's saying that he's missing there.
So that's not exactly, I mean, that's one way you could read it. There's people who do read it that way, but that would be the wrong way.
Like Aleister Crowley. That's like that. Like that's where a lot of those antinomic ones, where we need to make it so bad that in order, so you need to have the reverse happen.
Yeah, that's what the Sabbateans also believed. But no, the idea is that, I mean, like on one hand, there's a belief that in order to bring Mashiach, so like it's almost like if almost view it this way: if everybody is so wicked, then nobody will merit Mashiach. But it's almost like, imagine there's a lot of wicked people, but there's still people trying to do good, almost like, you know, the whole thing with like Abraham, you know, what if there's even 5 good people? And so it's about trying to, like, at least within Kabbalistic context, it's about trying to like release the trapped light, about trying to, you know, help people fulfill mitzvot. Because like within the Kabbalistic view, at least the Lurianic view, every mitzvah you do has like a real and tangible impact on the world, but like you just can't see it, at least not physically. It's like you can see it spiritually. And so like on that level, it's not like, oh, just abandon all hope. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think it's more within this kind of just very natural thing that also kind of sucks, but like entropy, like it's almost like how I was explaining with, you know, the fall from Eden, you know, not necessarily within a moral context, but just within like a very physical or metaphysical context. You could view it that, you know, the first sin, which literally in Hebrew translates as like missing the mark, or essentially the equivalent to, you know, missing a bullseye and landing outside of, you know, the target area. With each successive one, especially like the first ones, it ended up just causing the snowball that kept building and building and building. And eventually, I don't know, like obviously it's not as simple as like, oh, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. But it's like, you know, it gets better and then it gets worse, or like, you know, stuff's really good. And then this huge tragedy happens, or a huge war. And then people, you know, socially devolve, and, you know, until we get to the point where we are. And like, I don't know, like maybe it wasn't inevitable, but like it's one of those things where I think the question would be less so on humans like, oh, well, you know, are you supposed to be making it better or worse? And more so on God, like, why would that even be the case to begin with? Why would he create a situation like that?
Yeah, my answer to all that tends to be free will.
No, I get that there's free will, but if you create a system that's intrinsically going to fail, or essentially intrinsically going to need this reset, isn't that essentially immoral?
I was going to say, no, that's a good question.
I guess the typical answer would be it's not immoral if God does it.
Well, and the other one is, if it exists on the level of existence, does that qualify under moral questions? if that's a pre-existing condition for the moral agent to exist, then it's kind of assumed that if morality exists, so does the preconditions. See what I'm saying?
Interesting.
Sort of like the death and life thing.
I
You
mean,
can't have one without the other.
isn't it ultimately the golden rule, though?
Well, do unto others before others do unto you. Oh no, that's the mob rule.
But like, think about this. Oh, dude, this is actually kind of trippy. If God could put himself in the place of a human, well, that's how you get Christianity. Um, but no, like, I mean, at the end of the day, if God could put himself in the place of a human and basically experience the vulnerability of wait, what was it we were talking about again? What, like basically, I mean, I guess one could argue, oh, well, because God's so powerful, the experience, it might be like, oh, that's not a good experience, but it's not like, oh, it would destroy God's core. But like the whole point is like and this is a trippy thing, the only way that, and this is my argument, the only way that God could ever fully become human would be to not be God. You see what I mean?
Well, to basically to be God and not be God at the same time. Yeah.
Well, but in that sense, it would be no different than everyone else, because at the end of the day, if there's even a little bit of God in you, you can't truly or I mean, if there's even a little bit of God, like beyond just this idea of a spark, like how can you truly be experiencing life as a human?
I was going to say, I don't know. That's where a lot of the questions come from.
Yeah.
I don't see why it's precluded, but again, the mechanisms to make it work, I don't know.
Anyway.
A lot of misconceptions about Mashiach, and a lot of people have all kinds of strange ideas and strange notions about what the world is going to look like when Mashiach comes. And a lot of people think that when Mashiach comes, it's going to be nice, but we're going to turn into these weird, strange people, and the world is going to turn into this strange place that we can't really relate to. And because of that, a lot of people express that they want to have a chance to really get to live life before Mashiach comes and before the world changes too much and before it's too late. And this all comes from a thorough misunderstanding of what the world is going to look like when Mashiach comes and what we're going to look like when Mashiach comes. And just a good way to think about it is, how on some days we wake up in the morning and we just feel good, we feel great, we feel alive, we feel comfortable in our own skin, we feel happy, we feel good about all the things in our life, about what we're doing, about the relationships in our life, we feel good and optimistic about our future prospects and about our future, and we just feel amazing, and we feel like we could do anything, and everything we put our hands to just turns to gold. And then on other days, nothing actually changes. Nothing changes about our future prospects. Nothing changes about what we're doing. Nothing changes about our life and about our future. And we just feel amazing. And we feel like we could do anything, and everything we put our hands to just turns to gold. And then on other days, nothing actually changes. Nothing changes about our future prospects. Nothing changes about what we're doing. Nothing changes about our life or about the things in our life. We just wake up in the morning and we're gripped with this like dark, fuzzy, hazy cloud known as the gullus darkness. And suddenly we just don't feel good anymore. We don't feel good in our skin. We don't feel good about what we're doing. We don't feel good about all the areas in our life. We don't see any future for ourselves. We don't feel like we could do anything actually. Our past suddenly seems pretty pathetic, and just life becomes blah or just terrible, and it's terrible. Even though nothing has actually changed externally or on the ground, it's just that the gullus cloud has descended over us. And when Mashiach comes, God will remove the gullus cloud. And because of that, every single day of the year, constantly, 24/7, we will always feel the former way. We will always be our best selves. We will always be happy. We will always be centered. We will always be just on fire, just health. We will always be at our best and at our healthiest, and life will just become amazing. Think of the best day in your life, how good you felt, how alive you felt, how centered you felt, and just everything you did, you felt so good about and so amazing about. That's how you're going to feel every single day. Every single day is going to be the best day of your life. And when the whole world looks like that, when everybody in the world is living that way, when all of us are living that way, just life's going to become amazing. Everything we do is going to be amazing. We're going to continue our same lives, but there's going to be so much more purpose to everything, and we're going to be so much more driven and so much more happy, optimistic about everything. Life's just going to be great, 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 great always. It's going to be amazing. And just the important thing to bear in mind is that Gullus ends with us. So let's bring Mashiach together, and God bless you.
I saw war. I saw bombing. I saw shooting.
A certain well-educated French Jew who was highly skeptical and cynical about any belief in spiritual and metaphysical realities once came to the town of Lubavitch. And when he heard the Rebbe Rashab saying Hasidus and discussing various levels of angels and souls, he was incredulous. So when he got highly skeptical and cynical about any belief in spiritual and metaphysical realities, once came to the town of Lubavitch. And when he heard the Rebbe Rashab saying Hasidus and discussing various levels of angels and souls, he was incredulous. Heard the Rebbe Rashab saying Hasidus and once came to the town of Lubavitch. And when he heard the Rebbe Rashab saying Hasidus and discussing various levels of angels and souls, he was incredulous. So when he got a chance to talk to the Rebbe Rashab one-on-one, he said to the Rebbe that since none of these concepts can be proven, and since they don't make any logical sense, and since he doesn't understand how these things could possibly be true, he has come to the conclusion that in fact none of these things are real, and that angels and souls actually don't exist. And the Rebbe Rashab said, let me tell you a parable. There was once two French intellectuals who were traveling together on a wagon. And while the wagon driver was up front whipping the horses and urging them onwards, the two of them sat engrossed in a deep philosophical discussion where they talked about deep and profound ideas in their finest and most sophisticated French. And the Rebbe Rashab went on to say that there are three separate perspectives, three separate and distinct realities, three separate thought processes and headspaces occurring on this trip simultaneously. There is the perspective of the horses, and all they think about, and the only thought which is filling their minds and filling their universe, is the thought of fodder and hay, all the food that they will be able to eat once they reach the stables. Then there's the perspective of the wagon driver, and all he's thinking about, and all he cares about and is excited about, is all the vodka and beer that he'll be able to drink once they reach their destination. And finally, there is the perspective of the two French intellectuals, who are fully immersed, fully engrossed in this discussion. And all they care about, the only thing in the world that matters to them in that moment, are the ideas and the concepts and the possibilities that they are busy discussing. And the Rebbe Rashab concluded by saying these words: just because the horses don't understand French, does that mean that the Frenchmen aren't Frenchmen? Does that mean that the Frenchmen aren't real? In other words, just because you have such a limited perspective, just because you have such a narrow, shallow, and childish conception of reality, it doesn't mean that the spiritual realities discussed in Hasidus aren't real. And many decades after the story took place, the Rebbe was once farbringing, and he was discussing and he was talking about how Mashiach's arrival is imminent, and how through our efforts and our actions, we can bring Mashiach right now, we can actualize Mashiach reality. And in the middle of the talk, the Rebbe made reference to the story, and he said that just because there's someone in the crowd who doesn't see and doesn't feel that Mashiach's arrival is imminent, even if there's someone in the crowd who doesn't feel and doesn't see and doesn't sense that through their actions they could bring Mashiach right now, that is analogous to the horses in the story who are completely oblivious to the ideas and the concepts being discussed right in front of their faces. Their thickness doesn't make it any less of a reality. Their denseness doesn't make it any less real. And the bottom line is that Mashiach is coming very, very, very soon, with or without you, whether you're ready or not. And we all have a choice to make in these final moments of exile and these final moments of Gullus.
Ready or not, here he comes.
These final moments of exile in a lowly, animalistic headspace, with our heads buried in the mud, completely out for lunch, completely not with the program, completely oblivious to real, true, mature, objective terror reality. Or we can choose to open up our eyes and to see and to witness and to live and to experience Mashiach's arrival as it unfolds all around us. So the choice is yours, the choice is ours, and let's bring Mashiach together.
So one thing he was kind of talking about, kind of reminded me, it's almost like the default is that Mashiach will come when it gets bad enough, but that we can bring Mashiach faster, not by making the world worse. I mean, I guess that is one of the implications, but really that's still like a race to the bottom, as opposed to trying to bring Mashiach now by by doing by keeping Torah and by reading Torah and keeping mitzvot. But I mean, there's definitely people who took it the wrong way, and like the thing that's dangerous about that is that even if you view it from like there's like none of it's real, it still has a tangible effect on humanity. That's why it's so much better that people view that they need to do good in order to bring Mashiach rather than just be idle bystanders or worse.
Yeah, I was going to say they have to activate their 12-dimensional DNA light bodies. Or would he think that's misinterpreting some of this too?
What are you talking about?
Oh, some of those New Age ascension interpretations.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, that was good.
It's going to be a long, cold winter here in Jordan and across the world. Right now, tens of
There is a very famous pasuk about the end of days in the book of 𝐤�𤅅𐤋𝐃𝐕 where the prophet Jeremiah writes, Nekeva to save of gather, which means that in the end of days, Hashem will create a new phenomenon and a new mentality where a woman will go in search of a man. And the commentaries explain this to mean that historically and traditionally, it's always been the man that's pursued the woman. It's always been the male that's wooed the female. But as we get closer,
it would certainly make things easier for me.
One of the signs of Mashiach's imminent arrival is that there will be a cultural shift in the courting process where it will become more and more acceptable for a woman to make the first move, for women to pursue men. And the famous 12th century Jewish commentator, the Radak, so he elaborated on this, and he wrote something very beautiful on this pasuk. He explained
Rabbi David
the reason why it will be that way then, the reason why women will pursue men right before Mashiach's arrival, is that will really just be reflecting and mirroring something much greater and larger at play here. And that is that the Jewish people are called a woman, we are Hashem's wife. And Hashem is called a man, he is our husband. And Gullus is essentially Hashem saying, I am not going to chase you anymore. I want to see if you are serious about this relationship. And the marriage of Mashiach will not become a reality until you make the first move, until you pursue me, until you first do tshuva. Only when you express interest, then I will swoop in, then I will meet you halfway, then I will bring the Gula, then I will bring Mashiach rest, then I will swoop, you pursue me until you first do tshuva. Only when you express interest, then I will swoop in, then I will meet you halfway, then I will become a reality until you make the first move, until you pursue me, until you first do tshuva. Only when you express interest, then I will swoop in, then I will meet you halfway, then I will bring the Gula, then I will bring Mashiach, then we will be married happily ever after. So the Alter the Tshuva, the Alter the Gula, and Mashiach now.
All right, so let's start. Let's see, where are we? Here, and then where was the let's see. Wisdom first. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, baruchu et Adonai v'barach, baruch Adonai v'barach l'olam va'ed, baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mechol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato, baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Vayiten lecha Elohim mital hashamayim u'mishamane haaretz verov dagan v'tirosh yavavu yavdu Amim vayishtachavu lecha leumim vegevir leachecha vayishtachavu lecha bnei mecha עוררך אור ארור ומברכך ברוך. ויהי כאשר קהילה יצחק לברך את יעקב ויהי אך יצא יעקב מאת פני יצחק אביו עשו אחיו בא מצדו ויעש גם הוא מצמים ויבא לאביו ויאמר לאביו יקום אבי ויאכל מצד בנו בעבור תברכני נפשך ויאמר לו יצחק אביו מי אתה ויאמר אני בנך ובכורך עשו ויחרד יצחק חרדה גדולה עד מאוד ויאמר מאיפה הוא הצד צעיר ויבא לי ואוכל מכל בטרם תבוא ויברכך הוא גם ברוך יהיה. כשמוע עשו את דברי אביו ויצחק צעקה גדולה ומרד מאוד ויאמר לאביו ברכני גם אני אבי ויאמר ברכך במרמה ויקח ברכתך ויאמר אחי קרא שמו יעקב ויעקבני זה פעמיים את בכורתי לקח והנה אתה לקח ברכתי ברכתי ויאמר הלא הצלת לי ברכה ויען יצחק ויאמר לעשו בן גביר שמתיו לך ואת כל אחיו נתתי לו לעבדים ודגן ותירוש שמחתיו והוא לך אפוא מה אעשה בני ויאמר עשו אל אביו הברכה אחת הוא לך אבי ברכני גם אני אבי ויישא עשו כולו ויבך ויען יצחק אביו ויאמר אליו הנה משמני הארץ יהיה מושבך ומטל השמיים מעל ועל חרבך תחיה ואת אחיך תעבוד והיה כאשר תהריר והוא פרחת ולא מעל צווארך. So for context, where we're starting, this is Isaac blessing Jacob. So just reading the verse before, I'm not going to translate because I didn't read the Hebrew right now, but wait gosh. And he approached and he kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothes, and he blessed him, and he said, you appear to smell, or you seem to smell like my son. You seem to smell like the smell of the field, as he blessed. Like the smell of the fields that the Lord is blessed. This really makes me think that it's a reference to drug fields, but I mean, that's a story for another time. Anyway, Vayitan lecha ha'Elohim. May God grant you from the heaven, or from the dew of the heavens, and from the oils of the earth. So it's interesting. So here this translates fat of the earth down here, but literally oils of the earth, which some people could potentially even translate as like rock oils. I mean, I've seen an interpretation of it that way. I think it's interesting. I personally think that in this context, it's referring to the oil of the like trees and, fruits and, oil producing vegetables, or I guess just what it'd be like vegetation in general. But anyway, the oils of the earth, and the increase or an abundance of dagan, which is grain, and tirosh, which is it's a specific type of wine, fresh or new wine, freshly pressed wine. Interesting. Ya'avducha amim. You'll be served by nations by peoples, and nations, le'umim, will bow down before you. Heve, what would this be in this context? Heve 𤤕𤅅𝑄𝐷. 𤤕𝑅 could be master or lord. Lechecha. Oh, have you have like the you, it's implied, but a master will be over your brothers. So by saying your brothers, it's implying that it's by implication you. But also what's interesting here, so I mean, I read the English translation, but I'm translating here. So vayishtachavu lecha b'nei imecha, and the sons of your mother. Yeah, the sons of your mother will bow down to you. Arod. Arod. The cursors of you, Arud, Arur. That's why I didn't get it right. Arurecha Arur. Your cursors are cursed. Mevarechecha Baruch, and your blessers are blessed. And so it was as Isaac finished blessing Yaakov, and so Yatsa. And so just as Yatsa, and after Yaakov quickly left. It's interesting because here you have Yatsa. It's like emphasizing. It's kind of like what's the word? Like yella, like let's go. Emphasizing the urgency. Matt Panay Yitzchak. He quickly left the presence of Isaac, his father, as Esau, his brother, came from hunting, or from his hunting. And he also prepared mamtaim, prepared comfort foods. I think that's the best translation. Tasty or savory foods, delectable foods, what we would call comfort foods. Vayave laviv, and he came to his father, and he said to his father, "Get up, my father, and eat from my game, that your son." On account that you will bless your on account that your soul will bless your son. Wait, Beno? How is it saying? Eat of his Mitzayad Beno. Of his son's game. On account that you will. Because the bless me is implied here. Tivarchani. Instead of bless your son, it's bless me, and then your son is your son's game. So and he said to and Isaac, his father, said to him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am your son, your firstborn, Esau." And Charad. So this is the same root as charedi, which means to tremble, like trembling before God. But in this context, it's just trembling in general. So Vayecherad Yitzchak charada gdola, and Isaac was seized by a great, Isaac was seized by a great fear. Admeod, until a lot, like very much. And he said, "Me who wait, Afo would be, who was where that who was it where he had said say hunted game and came to me and gave me to eat from Mikol and I ate all of it before you came, and I blessed him. I blessed him also. Gam Baruch Yihia, and also now he will be blessed. And when Esau heard the words of his father Isaac, he cried out. Vayitza'ak. Okay, so this is interesting. So Yitzhak is a play here. It's a play on words because his father Yitzchak, and then you have Yitzhak because Yitzchak means he cried. Whoa, that's weird. So tzachak means to laugh. Tza'ak means to cry. That's cool, right? I just realized that.
Yeah, especially since those two are very much linked in the emotional spectrum.
Oh yeah, we were actually listening to a video last night about that. Remember?
Yep.
That's fascinating. Dang, I wish I could share this with my friends and with my rabbi, but everybody's away now because of Thanksgiving break, so I've got nothing to do tomorrow except hopefully look for a good deal for Black Friday. Let's see, where are we at? And he cried out in a great like in great distress and bitterness, and very like Admit like until he had done it a lot, I guess, like basically a lot. And he said to his father, "Bless me also, my yeah, bless me also, my father." And here it would be, but he answered, your brother came in deception, Yerma, in treachery, 𤤕𤅅𤋃𐤃𝐕, and he took your blessing, and he said, hachi kara, hachi, what is this again? Oh, would it be because? Wait, it's been so long. It has so many different contexts, so many different meanings depending on the context. Surely, maybe it's like a question. So, and he said, surely, Karashimo Yaakov, surely, wait, surely he was called by his name Yaakov, and Yaakaveni, and he, and he would overtake me, or he would overreach me like this, Palmaim, like these 2 times, I guess it's saying. At Bechorati, my firstbornness, lakach, he took, vehine, and now, or vehine ata, and behold now, lakach birchati. Oh, it's a play on words. He took his firstborn status and he took his blessing. I didn't realize until now they were 2 different things. So, and now he took my blessing. And he said, Halo atzlach atzaltat. Can you not put aside for me a bracha, a blessing? And Isaac answered, or responded, and he said to Esau, this, or let's see. Okay, this is weird. Holy crap. I think I just found something. So look at this. So and he said to Esau, 𤤕𤅅𝐋𝐃𝐕 shamatav lacha. What's this? I have placed or set as a master over you, and all your brother, ve'et kol achayav, and all your brothers, natati lo, I have given to him, la'avadim, for, this is strange, for servants, v'dagan, v'tirosh, samachtiv, and grain and new wine will sustain him. Ulecha, and and for you, where, or what more can I do, my son? Okay, so this is weird. What's it mean, and all your brothers? There was only Jacob and Esau, right? Or am I missing something?
Well, that's the only brothers that they've referred to so far. You don't know about Isaac's other families in other towns.
It's funny. But no, like, I mean, Here, I'm going to get something else to eat. But no, dude, that's something tells me that this is. It almost seems like it's referring to Jacob's sons, but that it doesn't make sense in context.
Actually, I would go back a generation and say it makes more sense in Abraham saying this to Ishmael versus Isaac, where Ishmael was the firstborn and Isaac was the one who got the blessing and became the patriarch instead.
I don't know. It's what? So like, you think it's almost like Isaac's just copying his dad?
Well, or it's being written as sort of a replay of the same story, where it was a story that was originally set for Abraham to do, and they basically decided to make it Isaac doing it and adding in the whole Jacob aspect of it, and yeah, it's just sort of a mixing of it, sort of with documentary hypothesis. This has ended up where it ended up getting shoved in. They ended up adapting it from being an Abraham story to being an Isaac story, maybe because Isaac didn't have enough to do.
I still feel like, let's see what the commentary on this is. This says, and all his brothers, etc. Yitzchak refers to Ishmael and his extended family and the children of Keturah. So that seems like to be what you were saying.
Yeah. It always worries me when I come up with the same thing as some of the rabbis.
Think maybe you were a rabbi in a past life?
I wouldn't rule it out. But yeah, it's definitely a very odd phrasing. The other thing that jumps out to me is, okay, if Esau had gotten that blessing, was Isaac gonna screw Jacob over by basically giving him nothing? Like he's basically saying he can't give anything to Esau here?
No, because well, we'll see, but
yeah, because there's a part of me that says it's like, well, why don't you just flip the blessings then? He got yours, you get his, and sorry about that. That's just how it's going to be. As opposed to, well, he got his and you get nothing.
This is interesting. One moment. Yeah, there's so much interesting commentary on this. Oh my god. So, this German rendering of the name Yitzchak is Jizchak or Jizchak. You there?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, have you ever come across the conspiracy theorists who think that the Bible's fake because it has J's in it and they don't realize that's a new thing?
Yeah, no, I've heard that. I haven't heard that specifically for a Bible. I've heard that used against Jesus existing.
Yeah, they'll be like, "Oh, you dummies! You think that your Jesus lived in Jerusalem, but it was actually Yeshua in Jerusalem, and therefore the Bible that the King James Bible." I mean, to be fair, if you want to criticize the King James Bible, do it for plenty of reasons, but don't do it for something stupid like the letter J. It's like, I have no issue with people having different theologies. Just don't be stupid about your theology. Be consistent. And a big part of that is knowing the origins of stuff, including the letter J.
But what if they're consistently stupid in their theology?
Well, then they're just consistently stupid in general.
Well, I figured they'd satisfy your consistency requirement.
Honestly, I don't know whether being consistently stupid or being only stupid when it comes to religion is better or worse. Or imagine actually, I feel like it's understandable if someone is very what's the word, sophisticated, and they know a lot about a religion, but then they maybe don't have a whole lot of I understand that there's a context for that. There's a reason people are raised that way. I don't think people should be raised that way. I think they should have life skills outside of that. But the point being is, imagine you have someone who's like a genius. They're like a scientist, and all of a sudden they are like stupid about a religion. I don't mean that they end up believing in religion. I mean they end up stupid about it. Like they end up joining a religious cult, or they end up what is it, like, honestly, like, there's a certain type of person who, like, they'll get into religion, but like they don't really get it. And like I feel like on one part it's them trying to fit in, and I understand that, but on the other hand, some of them become super self-righteous.
Well, people have the ability to be self-righteous about lots of things besides religion. Talk sports with anybody. Most people are pretty self-righteous about their own hometown sports teams.
No thanks, I choose not to. And by that I mean I'm just not really a sports person. So don't find a lot of interest in it. But one sec. Let's see, what is it? Let's see. 1 moment. Okay, so where are we? So, and Esau said to his father, is there only one blessing for you? Or like, I guess the implication is, do you only have one? Oh, lecha. No, it'd be for you. Yeah. Wait, lecha avi brach. Wait, no. Yeah, it would be. Is there only one blessing for you, or do you do you only have one blessing? Father, bless me also. Um. Wait. Um. Wait. Yeah. So no, he said, Father, do you only have one blessing? Bless me also, Father, and um. And Esau lifted up his voice, and he vayivach, and he wept. And Isaac his father answered and said to him, behold, hine, like, behold, from the fat of the earth, yihiyeh, yihiyeh mushavecha, your abode will have the fat of the earth. and from the dew of the heavens, from above, and upon or by the sword you will live, and your brothers, and your brother you will serve, and will be as Tarid, and you will wander. Oh, and you will wander, parak, and you will separate. You'll separate ulo from upon me'al, from ulo me'al, like break off, upon from off, or from of his neck. Or here it's saying, wait, ulo. Oh, ulo is something else. Ulo. Okay, and you and will separate the yoke from upon, or wait, his yoke from upon your neck. Okay. Let's see. Any thoughts on that?
No, pretty much what I said before about, what was he actually going to give Jacob if he had given the previous blessing to Esau?
It's almost like, here, I'll disguise your curse as a blessing. It's not really a curse, but... So, I'm going to show this mainly because I want people to see how this has been interpreted by people, not because I endorse this idea.
Much, though by no means. For now, just know that much, though by no means all, of the Arab world carries with them the genes of Esau.
You can make the same argument for
in
Jews
particular,
as well.
a large
Everybody
segment
does.
of the
Christians,
Turkish population
Jews,
is related to Esau, as are most Syrians and the Kurdish people of Iraq. We should at least have heard of the Ottoman Empire, which ruled the Middle East for many centuries, from about 1300 to just after World War I. The Ottomans were a dominant tribe in the nation of Turkey, and it was these particular Turks who are direct descendants of Esau. And of course, these Turks are Muslim. And we know from Bible prophecy that the Turks are going to play a primary role in the events of Revelation as enemies of Israel. All comes together, doesn't it? The thing we must also understand is that the majority of Muslims in this world are in some way or another related to Esau, even the ones in Afghanistan. So this enmity that would occur between the twin brothers, Jacob and Esau, almost 4,000 years ago, has everything to do with the condition of our world as it is right now. It's what's led up to our current situation and how it's going to all play out leading up to and through the Great Tribulation. Now, looking at a little more of the blessing, or really, I think, curse that Esau was given, it says, by your sword shall you live. In other words, violence, pillaging, that shall be Esau's way of gaining wealth and prosperity. And as I have explained on a number of occasions, these prophetic blessings have more effect on the person's future descendants than on the person who originally received the blessing. And that is what we find as we follow the progress of Esau's line. Esau's descendants didn't become shepherds. They became conquerors, bands of robbers who descended on caravans that passed through their lands. War was their way of life. War is even at the heart of what is now their religion, Islam. Further, the blessing also says, and you shall serve your brother.
The same thing about Christianity or Judaism
But
at different points.
When you grow restive, you shall break the yoke from your neck. It was King David who was the first descendant of Jacob to rule over the descendants of Esau, and as prophesied in the blessing of Isaac. Edom wore the yoke of Israeli domination on their neck from about 1000 BC until about 735 BC, a longer period of time than the United States has been a nation. It was King Ahaz of Judah who lost control of the Edomite nation, and not since then have the descendants of Esau admitted to being under the control of an Israelite. Hopefully this helps to explain the determination of the so-called Palestinians today to be free of any control under the thumb of the reborn nation of Israel, because many Palestinians recognize they are descendants
Super
of Esau.
reductive. Oh my God. It's also really dangerous that this theology exists among some people. Whether it's true or not, I mean, given, obviously you have Jordanians who are, descended of the Edomians, but the point though is that it's dangerous because of the idea that some people have that, especially after what Netanyahu said about the basically comparing Hamas to the Amalekites. It's dangerous if this idea already exists.
So how would you describe the chicken to someone who had never tasted it?
Literally melt in your mouth tender. We don't have a freezer, It's almost like a farmer's market. When you walk into the restaurant, you should hear the sizzle that you're hearing right now. It just sends all those waves up to your mouth.
You're making me hungry.
As Jews, we have an obligation to wipe out the Amalekite nation from upon this world. Who were the Amalekites? They were a nation that had an inborn hatred to Judaism. We did nothing wrong. They had no reason for their hatred. Their only purpose in this world was to destroy God's people. And so we had no choice, kill or be killed. Wherever a Jew walked, if an Amalekite saw them, they would attempt to kill them. And so we had an obligation to wipe them out from the face of the world. Today, the Amalekite nation no longer exists. They've assimilated into the world. And as a result, the hatred is not felt in the same way. So how do we wipe out Amalek today? We all have a little Amaleki inside of us. It's called unhealthy cynicism, doubt. We look at the world and we wipe out Amalek today. We all have a little Amaleki inside of us. It's called unhealthy cynicism, doubt. We look at the world and we can choose to be cynical. We can look at the world and say, people today, they're not really good. No one's really trying to make the world a better place. But these thoughts are toxic. The world is a beautiful place. God created such an amazing world, and our mission is to reveal God in this world. And cynicism is the enemy of change. And so our responsibility today is to destroy that Amalekite part inside of ourselves. That's our responsibility. As Purim approaches, and this is the holiday that celebrates the destruction, the victory over Amalek, we have an opportunity to look inside of ourselves, to confront our own unhealthy cynicism, and with joy to erase all of the Amalekite inside of ourselves.
See, I think that's a good way of interpreting it. It's honestly the only good way to interpret it.
Well, I agree with him at the end. His start wasn't good. When you're leading off with a call for genocide, it's really, you're going to lose me as part of your audience usually.
Basically see, that's the thing. Like, at the end of the day, his argument is because they don't exist today, that means we shouldn't wipe them out because we can't wipe them out, not because genocide is bad.
The problem is the same logic would go that, how do we know that they don't still exist there? It's our job to go around, find those Amalekites, hunt them down on the streets and slaughter them. The logic applies to both interpretations, and it scares me that too many people would go for the second one. Tag.
Yeah, if they, all it takes is to not see. There's actually one of the interesting traditions. There was a tradition that the Amalekites, the reason why, What was it? There's a tradition they could like turn into animals or something.
Well, yeah, that's why they had to slaughter all the animals as well, because normally you would at least, take the animals. That those would be the booty, but no, that was those one of those animals could have been the Amalekites shapeshifted into it.
Wait, so is that the reason why they couldn't eat the animals they killed either? Because they could inadvertently become cannibals?
Exactly.
But yeah, Amalek was like the evil grandson of Esau. And some people will like be like, oh well, he came from him, therefore Esau is bad. But no, Esau was actually like Esau was an anti-hero. He was the Deadpool of
around
his
you in
time.
your neighborhood may not like some of the neighbors, but certainly not Amalek. So how are you going to be Mekayim the mitzvah say the rice of Mechias Amalek? And like Tishkach. And the whole thing is such a steer we know obey. The only ones in the world that remember Amalek are us. If after 10 generations we would forget about Amalek, there'd be no Amalek. So what does the Torah say? Zachor Eis Hashotz Amalek. You better remember Amalek. Loi Tishkach, never forget. Machai Timcha Zer Amalek. Well, what are we supposed to do? Forget? Eradicate? Eradicate means there's no commemoration.
Oh
no
my
Amaleki,
god, dude! Do you
archaeological
see? Well, you can't
find,
see
no
the
Amaleki
captions
dog,
because
no
this is too
Amaleki cow,
fucking
no Amaleki
funny.
sheep, no Amaleki house, no Amaleki.
Here, I'm going to read the captions.
Amalek, you better remember.
No, I can see it. Yeah.
There'd be no Amalek. And the whole some of the neighbors, but
This guy does too much Molly, that's for sure.
how are you going to be Mekayim the mitzvah say the rice of Mechias Amalek? And like Tishkach. And the whole thing is such a steer we know obey. The only ones in the world that remember Amalek are us. If after 10 generations we would forget about Amalek, there'd be no Amalek. So what does the Torah say? Zachor Eis Hashotz Amalek. You better remember Amalek. Loi Tishkach, never forget. Machai Timcha Zer Amalek. Well, what are we supposed to do? Forget? Eradicate? Eradicate means there's no commemoration, no Amaleki. Archaeological find, no Amaleki dog, no Amaleki cow, no Amaleki sheep, no Amaleki house, no Amaleki well.
Normal Amaleki sheep.
Remember Amalek? Never to forget Amalek. The whole mitzvah sounds so puzzling. And who's Amalek today? So the Rambam says the mitzvah of Mechias Amalek is the Heit Rishoyim. It's a contemporary mitzvah. The Ramban, in his addition to mitzvahs that the Rambam neglected to write, Nasei Zion, V'chein etztavinu b'schira zu kedei lizkor, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be moiche, not just for no reason, the name of Amalek, eradicate.
Oh my god, he's
Meichem loso
that
reason,
college
HaKadosh
bar
Baruch Hu
will be my friend.
moiche, kor, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be moiche, not just for no reason, the name of Amalek, eradicate. Meichem losoy oleinu. He loves us. Listen to the Lashon of the Ramban. It's a very contemporary Lashon. Lin koim, to take vengeance. HaChamas, that's what he writes. HaChamas. Sha'ot salono Amalek, mimeni yisal. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take our vengeance. You know, it's like Rashi Yeshonim says, Bikei Shankiv Leisha B'Shalva. Eshiv Yaakov. Nitzoitz echad yoytze mimafuach shalcha. It's going to take down Esau. You know what our job is? Our job is to keep on learning. It's that blacksmith that's clanging away at the anvil, and one spark will ignite all the flax and take down the enemy. That's exactly what our job is. So it's the Rebbeinu Shalom. We have to remember that the Rebbeinu Shalom will take Nekama, the Chamlosai, his tremendous compassion that he has over us. Take Nekama. The Smag and Siman Chav Gimel. The love of Leisishkach, what does it mean? Don't forget Amalek. Who's Amalek? He writes, Shaloi Nishkach Sha'kodesh Baruch Hu Yitzilenu Miyada. We should have Yerosai al Paneinu, Levilti Necheta, V'schuzeit in Lonu Koyach Leinaka Mimena. Who's going to protect us from our daily Amalek? Our generational Amalek? Ki Yod al Kisya, Dor, V'choma Ba'amalek. It's going to be the Rebbeinu Shalom. And it's going to be our Amunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we have to remember that the Rebbeinu Shalom will take him down. Sefer Charedim, a fascinating insight. The mitzvahs loisas say at Tluyas Beretz Yisrael, Pei Beis, is Mosif, the second parak. The mitzvahs haschiru of Israel isishkach, lizkar shamolik bo, biglal sharafu yudaim shel Yisrael min ha-Torah min ha-mitzvahs. Every mitzvah that you perform enthusiastically, like you run to lunch, every loisase that you abstain from without any weakness, that's Mechiyas Amalek. You can be Mekayim, the mitzvahs asay of Mochai Timcha Zecher Amalek, like Tishkach, the whole year round. Just energize yourself like Amalek was energized to go after you. Sefer HaChinuch, mitzvah Tafresh Gimel. The shirish of the mitzvah, Losei Salibenu, Shkol HaMetzah Yisrael. Whoever causes pain and grief to the Jewish nation is doing it HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The bigger he is, the nastier he is, the harder he's going to fall. They attack Klal Yisrael in such
I
a
will return
dastardly
after
way,
I take the stab.
killing themselves in the process, scalding themselves to cool off the pool, and that's how they were destroyed. And that's going to be in the future. Look at these enemies of the Jewish people, and the ferocity, intensity of the hatred is going to be the bigger mapo. And now I want to suggest one more Mahalach, which is a very contemporary Mahalach, because I was Machadish it. It is not from the Take It or Leave It column. I believe it's true. And it's based really on something I heard from Mori Rabbi Remot Legiftas Zatzal, a very cryptic statement that I'm now fleshing out. Amalek, he said, is a contraction of Omel Kuf. Being diligent, learning, chazering 100 times. It's a mystery, I'm sorry too, but I'll try to explain. Vayilachem Yisrael b'Refidim. Raf Yedeim shel Yisrael b'Torah v'mitzvah. Refidim is not just a geographic location. It's a description as to how Amalek attacked. Why Amalek attacked? What was lacking in Klal Yisrael? They were weakened in Torah mitzvahs, but it doesn't say in what.
So on that note, one sec. So just for context, let's see, where was it? Wait, did I just... One moment. Could have sworn I just saw it. It's just the way they remind. One of the things he said, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it reminded me of. Let's see. USG meeting. Let's see. It's USG meeting. Palestine, Israel. And the thing is, this was separate from anything. Well, I mean, obviously, the meeting was about Israel, but you'll see what I'm.
We're learning more about a student government meeting this week at ASU that got heated between Israel and Palestinian supporters.
Last night, we heard from pro-Israel supporters who had to be escorted to their Shabbat tonight, and tonight we're hearing from the other side. Fox 10's Lindsay Regas joins us live with more. Lindsay.
Students for Justice in Palestine at ASU say they were at that meeting to have their voices heard, but that all changed when the meeting was cut short. Take a look.
Well, shoot, this isn't the right video. But I mean, first of all, they're saying along with the Intifada. But then they're also calling for a ceasefire. The two things aren't consistent. On one hand, you're calling for for bloody violence in the streets, and on the other hand, you're calling for peace. Like it doesn't make sense. But to be
No,
fair,
no,
I
no.
was just going to say, I think, to be fair, I think a lot of them aren't. I mean, so on one hand, you have people who obviously know what it means. On the other hand, I think you have people who legitimately don't know what it means, and they're just stupidly repeating something they don't even know what it means.
Oh, I was going with the idea that that they basically want the Israelis to put down their guns, and then they're going to keep firing and have all the blood in the streets. I don't see those two ideas as inconsistent at all.
I mean, morally, though.
Oh, I didn't know morals came into war like this.
At ASU last night started with a clash of Israel and Palestinian supporters and ended with police escorting some of the students home.
Fox 10's Marissa Starback has more on how this war is affecting people here in the Valley.
Christina, John, we saw about 120 people in that Students for Justice in Palestine group go to that meeting last night at ASU campus, and they were asking ASU to essentially separate themselves from Israel in general and overall. Now, the Israeli students and the Palestinian students certainly clashed at this meeting, and the meeting ended early when rocks were reportedly thrown at the
Really
windows
a
where that
clash.
meeting
You
was
had
being
one
held.
side shouting at the other.
A student government meeting at ASU turned into a fiery exchange between pro-Israel students and pro-Palestine students.
Be afraid to wear this shirt on campus.
The BDS bill, the Students for Justice in Palestine group.
And her shirt said nothing about Israel. It just said, "I love being Jewish." Like, that's... I mean, I don't know how to phrase it other than that. Like, I've stopped wearing anything visibly Jewish, like, at least visibly. And then, like, I can pull it out once. I should clarify, like, a necklace or take off a hat. But I don't feel comfortable wearing it around people I don't know anymore, because you never know what's... And, like, the thing is, it could be nothing to do with the state of Israel, but people just make assumptions.
Well, didn't you see the guy with the yarmulke with the big Star of David on there? He's clearly just doing that in order to insult and antagonize and taunt the Palestinians about how the Israeli government blew up so many of them. Clearly, that's what his motive was.
You know, originally there was a proposal to have the menorah on the flag of Israel. So for all you know, it could have just been the other way, and then people would have gotten, hate thrown their way for wearing menorah kippahs. It's like, dude, I just like being Jewish.
Well, and to them, that's a good enough reason to hate you. So.
Also, like, the thing that's always kind of, I don't know, it's weird to me that, like, the Palestinian movement still uses a flag designed by colonialists. Like, I don't get why they haven't redesigned their own flag. But
maybe the colonialists pay them like on a yearly fee, like the companies do, to have their names on stadiums. I don't know.
Oh, or maybe it's like royalties or something.
Yeah, it could be. You know, he who pays the piper gets to call the flag.
Is trying to pass asks the student government to remove Israel-made products from campus stores, divest in companies supporting Israel, and end all ASU study abroad programs in Israel. But the item was never formally discussed, with the meeting called to end early after those in attendance heard rocks hitting the windows.
They were outside in front of the MU, and they were
That's my rabbi.
Outside while we were having this meeting, and the rocks were thrown on a window. Thank God it did not break the window.
An ASU spokesperson released a statement that the university police department is investigating and says, quote, the incident is being reviewed for possible disorderly conduct and criminal damage charges. No arrests have been made at this time. But the Jewish students who had a police escort to their Chabad last night say they're feeling anything but safe right now.
I understand that ASU is trying to show
She's
you're
one of my
safe
friends.
here, but when they wake up and understand how quickly anti-Semitic rhetoric becomes organized violence. And that's what we saw yesterday.
An Israeli citizen and an IDF veteran studying here at ASU, Shaili Ben-Ezer, says since October 7th, she switched to remote learning.
I
And so that shirt she's wearing is the same one that the other girl was saying she's afraid to wear, and people
never
laughed
thought
at
in my
her.
generation we'll need to hide our Jewish pride. I'm carrying a gun here at my synagogue from the day that it started because I feel like we need to protect ourselves.
We did reach out to the group Students for Justice in Palestine for a comment. So far, we have not heard back. Reporting live in Tempe, Marissa Sarbach, Fox 10 News.
So you think you know Wix, but do you really? First up, we've got
a student government meeting at ASU Tuesday night ended with police escorting students off campus. For sophomore Emily Fox-Million, it was the first time she felt unsafe being Jewish.
You walk around and you understand that your identity is always going to be seen differently, that you're always going to be perceived differently because there are people in this world that don't want to respect you. But I had never had a moment where I actually felt scared for being Jewish, and that was hard.
Pro-Palestine students showed up at the meeting Tuesday night calling for an economic boycott of Israel. Jewish students were also there voicing support for Israel and talking about safety on campus.
That their advisors and deans are telling them to tuck in their scarves or hide their kippahs.
Fox-Million says the meeting later got heated and pro-Palestine students were yelling anti-Semitic chants and interrupting students as they were speaking. Then things reportedly turned violent when rocks were thrown at the window, forcing the meeting to end. Safety on campus.
That their advisors and deans are telling them to tuck in their scarves or hide their kippahs.
Fox-Million says the meeting later got heated and pro-Palestine students were yelling anti-Semitic chants and interrupting students as they were speaking. Then things reportedly turned violent when rocks were thrown at the window, forcing the meeting to end.
I can think of 3 people that I would consider friends crying, full of emotion, scared, worried, and sad, truly. Many of us held hands as we walked, just to hold each other a little closer.
Students for Justice in Palestine for ASU releasing a statement saying the meeting was not violent and anti-Semitic rhetoric wasn't used. The group says they were unaware someone threw rocks and whoever it was acted on their own.
It was scary and it was sad.
ASU police is investigating the incident. ASU President Michael Crow releasing a statement saying, quote, ASU will not tolerate acts of intimidation or violence. We are committed to inclusion and respect and to providing a safe environment for civil dialogue and learning.
I think definitely we're seeing an uptick in students, especially at Arizona State, that are feeling rather unsafe. It's really scary. There's not a single student at all who's Jewish that hasn't been affected by the October 7th attacks.
And meanwhile, ASU says the event with Tlaib was planned by groups not affiliated with ASU, and it did not meet university requirements for safety. Pro-Palestine students say the move violates free speech. We're told supporters still gathered on campus, and Tlaib spoke over the phone instead of in person. In the newsroom, Emma Lockhart for Arizona's Family.
will be followed.
And tonight, we're hearing from up the other side. Fox 10's Lindsay Regas joins us live with more. Lindsay.
Students for Justice in Palestine at ASU say they were at that meeting to have their voices heard, but that all changed when the meeting was cut short. Take a look. This was Tuesday night's student government meeting at ASU. Discussed at the meeting, the BDS bill.
Our bill called on ASU to boycott products in the campus stores that are based in Israel.
Inside were both Israel and Palestine supporters, students from both sides taking the podium.
We believe
also,
that
I'm going to be honest, I don't know, maybe this is kind of nitpicky, but it seems just kind of weird to not have someone who's Palestinian as the president of Students for Justice in Palestine. I don't know. It's like, I feel like you kind of don't have a certain level of perspective if you're not from there. You know what I mean?
And you see, I was interpreting it the other way, where by making him as the spokesman, they become much more presentable and come across as much more non-only Palestinian based. It shows they have a much more broad base in the community, and he presents a face that a lot more people are going to find not threatening.
That's sad.
Am I wrong, though?
You're probably right.
You know, one of the things I think that people need to realize is that interrupting the conversation, not letting people speak, that's basically conversational violence. And if you have people who are willing to do that, they're likely willing to go to physical violence too. You know, it's just that's their first step. If they can't shout down the person, they're going to gun them down. Tags.
Yeah, hopefully that's not the case. It's also one of the reasons why, like, if you're dealing with people who don't really have any interest in dialogue, it's better not to dialogue because it's only going to inflame things.
Exactly. Your friend with the gun has a much better solution than walking around holding hands in that situation.
Yeah, yikes. Let's see.
Palestinians as well have been targeted at this meeting.
Outside, a protest and rocks thrown at the window, ending the meeting early with no final decision on the bill.
Right now, students are really passionate and are really hurting during this time.
Finn Howe, president of Students for Justice in Palestine, says he doesn't know who threw the rocks, and there was a lot of energy in the room because comments were cut short.
The movement for Palestine is not one of Islam versus Judaism. There are many Jews who support Palestine, and it is simply a humanitarian call for a ceasefire to an end to the atrocities that Israel commits every day against the Palestinian people.
Jewish students told us last night they felt unsafe and had a police escort to their Chabad. Howe argues they're not the only ones who feel unsafe.
Many at ASU have had family who are involved right in Gaza, and to have to go to class every day knowing that your family is stuck in Gaza.
It's unclear who threw the rocks at the window, but ASU police say they are investigating and no arrests have been made. Reporting live, Lindsay Regis, Fox 10 News.
Welcome to today's side quest, the store run against the clock.
Yeah, now there's a difference between being pro-Palestine and being pro-Hamas. You know, you can support the people without supporting the government, because Lord knows, I don't support really Biden a whole lot.
But yeah, it's one thing if you're saying long-lived Intifada. I mean, like, I don't know if they didn't know what the Intifada was, but it involved buses blowing up, and it wasn't just Israelis or who got hurt. It was Palestinians as well. It wasn't just Jews who got hurt. It was Arabs as well. Like,
quite often, it was more Arabs that got hurt than Jews.
I don't know the stats, but I wouldn't be surprised.
All I'm doing is I remember some incidences where they sat there and said that there were, you know, like twice as many Arabs as there were like Jews on the bus at that point in time and things like that.
I mean, maybe like was certain ones, but I don't know if that was the case like generally. Anyway, let's see. So, I already read 40, but I'll start from here. Or wait, how much more do we have? Okay, so it's, let's see. So it's 9. So here 46. No, so I'll start here. So that's, it would be what, 46? So 41, 46. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I guess it would just be 6, and then you have, was this 9? So that would be 15. Okay, that's cool. Let's see, where are we at? let's see, Satan? Stam. Interesting. To oppose oneself to, it's the same word as Satan. ויסתום עשיו את יעקב על הברכה אשר ברכו אביו ויאמר עשיו בליבו יקרבו ימי אבל אביו והרגה את יעקב אחי ויוד גד לרבקה את דברי עשיו בנה הגדול ותשלח ותקרא ליעקב בנה הקטן ותאמר אליו הנה עשיו אחיך מתנחם לך להרגך ואתה בני שמע בקולי וקום ברך לך אל לבן אחיך רנה וישבת עמו ימים אחדים עד אשר תשוב חמת אחיך עד שוב הפכך ממך ושכח את אשר עשית לו ותשלחתי ולקחתיך משם למה אשקל גם שניכם יום אחד ותאמר רבקה אל יצחק יצתי בחיי מפני בנות חטאים לוקח יעקב אישה מבנות חטא כאלה מבנות הארץ למה לי חייך 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 חיים ויקרא יצחק אל יעקב ויברך אותו ויצווהו לה ויאמר לו לא תיקח אישה מבנות כנען קום לך פדנה ארם בדן פדנה ארם ביתה פתו אל אבימך וקח לך משם אישה מבנות לבן אחי אמך ואל שדי יברך אותך ויפרך ויברך ויברך והיית לי כעלמים. ויתן לך את ברכת אברהם לך ולזרעך איתך לרשתך את ארץ מגוריך אשר נתן אלוהים לאברהם. וישלח יצחק את יעקב וילך פדן ארם אל לבן בן בתואל הארמי אחי רבקה אם יעקב ועשיו. וירא עשיו כי ברך יצחק את יעקב ושילח אותו פדן ארם לקחת לו משם אישה בברכו אותו ויצב עליו לאמור לא תיקח אישה מבנות כנען. וישמע יעקב אל אביו ואל אמו וילך פדן ארם וירא ועשיו כי רעות בנות כנען בעיני יצחק אביו וילך עשיו אל ישמעאל ויקח את המחלת בת ישמעאל בן אברהם אחות נוויות. אל נשב לא לאישה. So let's see, where are we? And so Esau was hateful or like oppositional to Yaakov over the blessing that that was blessed, that his father blessed had blessed him because of the blessing that he had blessed, that his father had blessed him. And he said, and Esau said, build tall. In his heart, 𤤕𤅅𤄎𝄐𝐕. Let's see. Esau said, in his heart, 𝤕𝅅𝄐𝐕. יקרבו ימי אבל. Let's see. Let's see. Yemei Evel. Let the day of mourning יקרבו come for my father, and I will kill Yaakov, my brother. So he's saying, I don't want to kill my brother while my father's still alive. And when you God told, and when it was made known to Rivka the words of Esau, her son, her older son, or her greater son, she sent and she called for Yaakov, her son, her smaller son or lesser son, her younger son, and said to him, "Behold, Esau, your brother, Mitnachem, wants to take vengeance upon you and to kill you. And now, my son, listen to my voice and rise up, Barach lecha, Barach, flee lecha, Barach lecha, flee for yourself. Go flee. You go flee to Laban, my brother, Harana to Haran. Let's see. Stay with him. Yamim achadim. Stay with him for an uncertain time. Basically, stay with him for a while, like it says, until the anger of your brother returns, or like goes tashuv, like turns, until the anger of your brother turns from you, v'shakach et asher asir, and forgets what you did to him, v'shalachteni. Then I will send for you and take you from there. Lama eshkal shakal. Let's see. How or why eshkal? If I lost also you the same day. Let me not. I guess it translates as let me not you lose both in the same day. And Rebecca said to Isaac, "Tziti b'chayei." It seems like it's kind of just thrown in. Katzti b'chayei. I will end my. Oh, wait. Katsa. Kutz. Kutz. Oh, I will be sick with my life. If from the presence of the daughters of Chet, or if Jacob takes for a wife from the daughters of Chet, like these, or like those mivnot, like those mivnot from the daughters of the land. Why why will I have life? Kind of racist. Rebecca was pretty racist, or tribalistic at least. And so Isaac called for Jacob, and he blessed him, and and he sent him out, or he Seva, and he commanded him and said to him, "Do not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Come," or rise up and something fell over. Rise up and go to Padan Aram. So it's interesting. It doesn't say Lech le Padan Aram. It says Lech Padena Aram, which it means the same thing, but it's just kind of interesting. So like for instance, like to go like le darom, you could also say daroma or droma, or le tzafon tzfona, ma'arva, le ma'arav marva, or what would the other be? Le kedem or kedma. But let's see, le padne, padena aram, rise up, go to Padan Aram, the house of Bethuel, your the father of your mother, and take for yourself from there a wife from the daughters of Laban, the brother of your mother. And El Shaddai, potentially the breasted god or the god of the mountain, or some people translate as Almighty. It's probably the breasted god because it's associated with fertility. Yivarech otach will bless you, and you will be fruitful, and you v'yiravech, and you will increase, and you will be for a assembly of nations. And that's probably a reference to the 12 tribes, but technically 13, potentially even more tribes. But anyway, and may you wait, vayiten lecha, and may be given to you a birkat, the blessing of Abraham, lecha ulez, for you and for your seed or your descendants, itecha lerishecha, lerishtecha. What is this from Yerash? Oh, that that you will inherit, or you will possess the land Megorecha, from the from your sojourning or from your traveling, that Elohim God has given to Abraham. And Isaac sent Yaakov, and he went to Padan Aram to Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebecca, the mother Yaakov, the mother of Jacob and Esau, and Esau saw that saw that Yitzchak had blessed. I thought this was fleed. It's also interesting how Berech, depending on the letters, could either be flee or blessed. But saw that Yitzchak had blessed Jacob, and sent him to Padan Aram, and to take for him from there a wife from Beracho. Let's see. In blessing him, and he commanded to him and said, do not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. And when he heard Yaakov going to his father and to his mother and going to Padan Aram, obeying. Where does it say obeying? Yaakov, that Jacob had listened to his father and his mother. I guess that's obeying. And Esau realized that it was evil, bad, that the daughters of Canaan were bad in the eyes of Isaac, his father. Interesting that he doesn't care what his mom thinks. I wouldn't be surprised she screwed him over. But and Esau went to Ishmael, and took Machalath, the daughter of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, Achot, sister of Neviot, Al Nashav, for his wife. Al Nashav. Upon the wives law that he had Leisha for a wife. So we're finishing up there. But any thoughts before we close out?
Yeah, one of them, the first one that jumped out to me is when Rebecca sat there and said, "Listen to my voice." And it seems like by emphasizing the voice, it's emphasizing the whole speaking and commanding other to actions. And again, Jacob being the good mama's boy, he followed her. But it's interesting that she used the term "lose you both," because it seems like she's acknowledging that she had severed her relationship with Esau by pulling the deception there. And I'm surprised Esau didn't flip his gourd with that that Jacob had gotten yet another blessing from Isaac before he left. And of course that command, from Isaac to Jacob of, go to Haran and find yourself a good cousin to marry. And the last one is, the problem, that Esau basically he didn't fit in with the family because he wasn't racist. He was like multicultural and accepting. And when it saw how bad his father was, sat there and said, "Oh, I'm just going to add myself yet another Canaanite woman here."
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. So let's see. Let's find something else to watch real quick, and then we'll close out. Let's see. Esau. Was Esau bad? Let's see. It's interesting. There's very few people talking about, was Esau really as bad as they say?
Well, if he wasn't, that would mean Jacob wasn't quite as good as people want to think he is.
Oh, dear Lord. Someone made a documentary called Esau and the Palestinians. It said Superbook. I thought it said SpongeBob. Oh, wait. You guys can't even see what I'm looking at. Never mind.
And here I was thinking that you could do the Esau version of, how green is my valley? He'd be how red is my valley.
Let's see.
Oh, that was the other comment that I nailed in there when he sat there and said he was going to be a servant to him. That would fit there in the idea of them being traders, and basically shopkeepers and merchants, because that's essentially in a lot of ways a servant to the people in the towns. Tag.
What do you mean?
Oh, where it's like Petra and the Nabateans, they were known for the riches from trade. And in a sense, trade is serving your customers. So from that sense, they would have been servants to, the people that they were visiting, i.e. Jacob's descendants, the people of the 12 tribes. Tag.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I think this is a good way to end off. So there's Parshah Toldot from Chief Rabbi Ephraim.
Be positive and never despair. We should be positive and never despair. That's the message emerging from Parshah Toldot. Yaakov has his famous dream of the ladder, and in the midst of this prophecy, Hashem declares to him, Haaretz asher ata shochev aleha, lecha etnena ulezarecha, this land upon which you are sleeping right now, it's given to you and to your future descendants, the Jewish people. Vayazaracha kafaretz, and your descendants shall be like the dust of the earth. Ufaratsta, and they shall be spread out. Yama, vakedma, v'tzafona, vanegba, to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. Sforno comments on the fact that these directions are neither clockwise nor anti-clockwise, indicating the unpredictable, haphazard life of the Jewish nation. Just when we think things are marvelous, in an instant, suddenly our lives can, God forbid, be overturned. And then sometimes when things are terrible, in an instant, things could become marvelous. And this is further amplified by the Kli Yakar, who says that the directions are from the west to the east, to the north to the south, indicating from one extreme to the other, showing we should indeed never despair. Just when life for the Jewish people is intolerable, that's when Hashem can bring our Yeshua. He can bring our salvation, taking us as the swing of the pendulum indicates.
And what's so interesting is, so you can hear this idea that, bring our Yeshua, and you hear it from a Messianic Jew versus you hear it from a regular Jew, means two totally different things. Hey, Zero.
Definitely, that's where the advantage of the pluriform interpretation comes in. Until one of them starts claiming theirs is the only proper interpretation. That's when you can tell they're probably not quite as Jewish as the other one.
I mean, the thing is, you could be Jewish, but the moment you start to accept Jesus, immediately you think that's a reference to him and always has been.
I don't know. I don't think it's required, but I can see it's certainly easy to go that route.
I mean, if you believe that Jesus is God, you kind of have to go that route.
Well, what if you just go Christ as God, not Jesus?
I mean, depends if you think that Jesus is divine or not.
Well, no. Christ would be the divine part. Jesus would be the human part.
Then it would be consistent.
Yeah, it's sort of like the archetype is the divine part and the human part is kind of transitory.
Yeah.
To the other, to bring about salvation and redemption. At this very moment, when there is a tragic war in Israel, our prayer indeed is that Hashem will bless the Jewish people and he will transform our darkness into light, and may this happen speedily and instantly. And let's not forget the continuation of the same prophecy. For Hashem concludes by saying, "V'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama u'v'zarecha." And may all families on earth be blessed through you and your descendants. Whether people realize it or not, whether they're willing to acknowledge it or not, the Jewish people is an extraordinary blessing for our entire civilization. And that is why Hashem will guarantee that Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people, will live on forever. Shabbat Shalom.
Don't buy another pair of glasses until you've seen what this new invention can do. These self-adjustable
I don't know. It feels weird to end off after an ad, so I feel like we have to watch one more thing. Let's see. Let's find something short. Let's see. Let's see. Oh dear Lord.
Every secret sin that you do in your secret
Oh my God. No.
God loves you. He loves you so much that he sent his son to pay for your sin so that you could have redemption, forgiveness of sin, and be reconciled back to him. He said to the serpent that the seed of the woman was going to come and crush his head. It was the seed of the woman that was going to come and do away with the works of the enemy. And it was through his death, burial, and resurrection.
But this mom and her kids are like trying to get away from her.
Accomplished to get rid of sin in the world. Then if you want to receive salvation, then you have to be born again. You have to believe
Oh my God.
that he is Elohim.
You guys see this
He
shit?
died for your sin, was buried and raised from the third day. That if you believe this in your heart, you confess.
Well, if I was there, I would start engaging with her. I would start telling her how what she believes in is derived from an old Canaanite tradition.
I'm going to go and speak to them and say hello, but I'll come back to you.
Or you could always go into the Jesus was a pirate thing.
Oh, dude, honestly, whenever I meet someone like that, I kind of do wonder whether I should tell them about this, thrilling new theory, or whether I should tell them, like how, I don't know.
I don't know. For me, with people like that, I'd ask her, where in the Bible did Jesus sit there and say that you should get a microphone and loudspeaker and just scream at me when I don't want you to?
I mean, how else do you think he reached everyone he preached to?
Well, from everything I can tell, he didn't preach to that many people. It was the ones after him that got the speaker and the microphone and the speaker.
Dude, I miss that place so much. I wish I could just be there right now.
Even if she was screaming at you.
Honestly, yeah.
Was she just waiting for somebody else to come around to scream at?
I don't know. Let's see.
Oh, looks like about the end of it. Oh, is it his turn to scream at people? They take shifts?
No, I think he's just walking. Is he a monk?
He looks like a monk. But he doesn't have a microphone. Is it just me, or am I half expecting him to go martial arts?
Oh god, she's screaming at people again.
Oh, there she is.
Ugh. She's a disgrace to wherever she's from. It's one thing if you're at least like, oh, Jesus loves you, but she's like, Jesus died for your sins. You're a sinner. You're going to burn. What is that guy doing? He's just staring at the camera.
It is written, build up, prepare the way. Remove the obstacles from the way of my people. For this is what the high and exalted one says.
Hey, how are we?
You were right. He's part of.
Okay, so
she has crazy eyes.
is it morning?
Also with the one who is contrite, and whose spirit is
So
love.
it is afternoon here. It is afternoon.
To revive the heart of the contrite. I will not accuse them forever.
Oh well.
Is this donation pledge time?
Faint away on account of me, the very people I have created. I was enraged by their sinful greed. I punished them and hid my face in anger, yet they persisted in their woeful ways. I have seen their ways, yet I will heal them. I will guide them and restore comfort to Israel's mourners, creating praise on their lips. Peace, peace, far and near, says I am, and I will heal them. But the wicked are like the tossing sea which cannot rest, whose waves toss up muck and mire. There is no rest, says my God, for the wicked.
You'd probably do more good if you'd set up a TV and some sort of good animation.
So we have a team out with us today. It's such a joy as well. I love them so much. They're not on camera. So, but they are speaking to people and stuff like that. So that's good.
Let's see if I can start a firestorm. You see what I said?
I know. One of them is a pastor as well. So, glory to God. Glory to God.
Now, where in Jerusalem is this, Ariel?
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly.
Because what it seems like they're doing is they're setting up a gauntlet of evangelists for like the people to make it through on the street.
Whosoever would believe in him would not perish but receive everlasting life.
Please keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times. Enjoy the ride.
You see, your Jewish Bible speaks about your Messiah. And it tells you that your Messiah would be born in Bethlehem.
Please do not feed the animals.
Wait, to the animal or the tour guide?
It tells us that the Messiah will come before the second temple is destroyed. And then he himself will bring a way of the sin and everlasting righteousness. And that he will be cut off, but not for himself. And in Isaiah 53:8, we read that he is cut off for the sins of God's people. You see, God is holy, and we're not holy. And the reason that he gave you a law for Moses was to know you as a schoolmaster. He set you apart and made you a people. And the reason why was so that he could
The funny thing is,
bring forward the Jewish Messiah that would save God's people from their sins. It is because of God's holiness that he cannot just let us into heaven. It is because of his holiness that he made Adam leave Eden after just sinning one time. How many sins have you committed against God? For all your best efforts at eating kosher food and wearing all the right clothes, keeping
Does she have cards?
what about your heart?
She's got like pamphlets or books. Yeah, she was shuffling them earlier when she was up by the camera.
It is God that said that unless a man is circumcised in his heart, then he cannot see the kingdom of God. You see, God wants to take your stony heart and give you a heart of flesh and put the Holy Spirit in you. But Leviticus 17 verse 11 says that it is the blood which is the atonement for your soul. The
I mean,
Bible tells you the Messiah.
how could you be there, see her, listen to her, and not just want to join? You know?
I don't think any of them want to.
They're just resisting that urge really well, Ariel. You can tell.
And it is only with the blood of an animal was he able to do this.
Have you ever heard the joke where it's like two Jews was it like I don't know, like Shlomo and Mordechai are walking by a church, and there's also, I mean, don't repeat this because it's kind of offensive, but they're walking by a church, and someone's out there saying, if you convert to Christianity, I'll give you $500. And so it takes a bit of convincing, but one of them goes in and he tells his friend, I'll see you later. So he comes back out, and his friend asks him, so did you get the money? And he said, what is it with you? So his friend responds, what is it with you Jews?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
But no, in all seriousness, if she wants people to listen, she should probably have some food. The only thing is, it wouldn't be kosher food, most likely.
Well, that was what I was going to say. Isn't the Jesus thing to do basically to try to help the people, not to yell at them?
Not if you're just trying to make yourself feel self-righteous.
Oh, I guess she didn't learn the difference between righteous and self-righteous.
The iniquity of us all. But the Bible also says that after he has made his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed and prolong his days. And this is because on the first day after he was crucified, he was resurrected from the dead. In Isaiah 51, 9 and 10, we read, "Awake, awake, O arm of the Lord, and put on glory, you who are from ancient of days. It was you who parted the Red Sea, you that slay Rahab, and you that wounded the dragon."
So what was that second blessing you mentioned earlier, Graham? I came in late.
Oh, right before Jacob left for Haran, Isaac brought him in there and blessed him again, sent him off, and saying, basically, don't marry a Canaanite woman.
Oh,
Go to Haran and find yourself a pretty cousin up there to marry.
Was that the blessing, or what he said after the blessing?
That was basically, it was all, I think it was all part of the blessing. It was all part of the same event.
so this is apparently the biblical city of Edom. That at least what they supposed was. Ooh, what's this? I'm going to save this to watch later. Okay, let's see. I'm going to find one last thing to put on. Let's see. Let's see. Huh.
So the one.
Yeah.
One rabbi in the previous episode talked about how the blessing was different for Jacob, that it was about a particular nation rather than a father of nations. And I guess was that any different in that second blessing? Was there anything added to that? Or I guess the going to get the cousin and not marrying Canaanites kind of makes that so.
Sorry, what was that?
The whole thing of the one rabbi said that the blessing that was given to Jacob was different than the previous two patriarchs, that they were to father nations, but that Jacob was to father like a particular nation.
No.
And that
it's the same blessing.
He said the words during that. I don't know. He didn't say anything different at the time.
An assembly of nations.
Yeah, I don't know the phrase, but he cited a different phrase. I don't know if you recall that, Graham.
No, I don't remember. I remember something about there being a difference, and I think it's because that Jacob was going to have a whole bunch of sons rather than just the one that the one or two that Abraham and Isaac had, or I should say 2 and 2 that Abraham and Isaac had. Though Abraham had more than 2.
Well, it was in one of those videos, and he he said what the different phrase was, but yeah.
I vaguely remember what you were saying, but I don't remember enough to really have much of a comment on it.
It just seemed like a kind of narrowing down of the covenant to be particular nation rather than like the whole thing with like Ishmael being a whole other nation.
Well, Ishmael was also going to be a father of nations.
I found it.
They being
what is your name and where are you calling from?
Hey guys, this is Mark from Hawaii. Hey, thank you. My question is regarding Islam. So Muslims claim that Islam begins with Abraham, Ishmael, and Esau. Is that true in regarding that statement? What I mean by that is, what were Esau and Ishmael? Were they Goyim? Were they righteous Gentiles? Were they Jews? What were Ishmael and Esau?
That is a really cool question. I've never even considered any of those to be like that. I mean, but maybe there was a that's just cool. Rabbi, I can't wait to hear you talk about this one.
Yeah, so that's a really great question.
Okay, Mark,
So-
I'm going to hang up with you unless you have a question.
No, it's fine. That's great.
Okay,
That's
perfect.
terrific.
Thank you, Mark. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So, Ishmael, who was the son of Abraham through Hagar, was not suitable to be the father of the covenant nation, the Jewish people. But he is blessed, and his mother is blessed that her child a great nation will come out of it, and a nation who will be rather, who will be wild, who will be very adventuresome. It's important not to conflate. Ishmael is the father of the Arab people. Usually people conflate Arab with Islam. As it turns out, about 15% of Muslims are Arabs. There are more Muslims in the sub-Sahara African continent than there are Arabs in the whole world. So it's important to understand that I live in a country, it's the largest Muslim country in the world. I don't think there are any Arabs here. There are Arabs in the whole Sahara African continent than there are Arabs in the whole world. So it's important to understand that I live in a country, it's the largest Muslim country in the world. I don't think there are any Arabs here. I mean, there are Arabs here, but not many. There's not an Arab country at all. They're Muslims. So we have to be careful not to conflate Ishmael with Islam. Ishmael is the father of the Arabs. Ishmael did repent. He did participate in his father's burial. Ishmael is redeemable, but he's not the father of the nation who would have to be a light to the world, to the other nations of the world. Now, Esau was wicked. And in fact, we see in the Bible, Esau is not the father, has nothing to do with Islam at all. Esau is the father of some of the most wicked nations. You'll find Esau's descendants certainly in Europe, in Edom. And God says very clearly in the book of Malachi that he loved Jacob and hated Esau. Esau was wicked to the end. And the descendants of Esau are the arch enemy. Edom is the absolute arch enemy of the Jewish people to the very end. There are whole books just devoted to describing in unambiguous terms the unredemptive quality of Edom. One point I should make, because there will be misunderstanding, and that is when the Bible speaks about nations and their destruction, it's speaking about corporate nations, that the corporate nations will be destroyed, but there'll be remnants, individuals from these nations who will turn to the God of Israel. There's no doubt. Moreover, when God speaks of Israel being preserved, it means that God made a promise with corporate Israel. There are individual Jews who are the greatest enemies of God. We see in Isaiah 66, we see in Zechariah 14, that there will be Jews who will participate, who will be the greatest enemies of Israel, who will go to war with Gog and Magog, with the nations that attack Israel. They will ally themselves with the enemies of Israel. And we see that with our eyes today. The biggest advocates for the destruction of the state of Israel are Jews. It's if you don't know it, then you're living in you're living in an igloo, and you should get a newspaper sometime. So corporate Israel, of course, is the remnant, the faithful remnant, is described in Zephaniah 3, verses 12 through 16. But the individual Jews will be the greatest enemies of God. We see that today. There's a discussion of the corporation, but Esau is not related to Islam. But again, the vast majority of Muslims, talking about maybe 1.4 billion people, overwhelming majority of them are not Arabs. So Ishmael should not be conflated with Islam. It is a nation. Islam is a religion. It's a belief system. It's a monotheistic belief system.
Can you touch base? I've heard different concepts. One of them, I believe, David Solomon mentioned that like Catholicism actually came from Esau, because it was from Esau, the Edomites and so on and so forth. So
yes, very, very much so. That means that it doesn't mean Catholicism. That meaning the first person to ever use the word Catholic was a very early church father, a disciple of Polycarp. His name is Ignatius, and who uses the word Catholic. He's the first person to ever do that, referring to the church as universal. He's also the first guy. If he had never been born, this world would be a much better place. He is the person the first person to advocate for Christians to celebrate Sunday as a Sabbath rather than Saturday. He's the first one to advocate for it. It's not that it was practiced in the 2nd century widely, but he's pushing it. This is not a show about Ignatius, but he's like really early. So he's early 2nd century. His job was, he was the bishop of Antioch. Just the background. He ultimately is going to be, according to Christian tradition and a fair amount of literature that he writes, he's ultimately executed by Rome. So therefore, Rome is completely interchanged with Edom, but Rome is as the foot that's made of clay and iron. Early on in Daniel chapter 2, seen in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, or the fourth of the 4 beasts, which is really indescribable. It's just something horrible that really no imagery could adequately describe what is petrifying Daniel, but it's something that's not monolithic. It's something that changes considerably. We see the 4 horses. Whenever you see this 4 in Tanakh, your radar goes up. The 4 horses, 4 chariots. Mm-hmm. That means the 4 nations that would subjugate the Jewish people. The last of the 4 is always one that's not clear. It's not red. It's not a red horse, not a white horse, not a black horse. It's ash color. It's some sort of, because what happens is you have Rome that subjugates the Jewish people. The leader of Rome's military, Titus, he would destroy the temple in Jerusalem. Vespasian was the emperor at the time. Titus would ultimately take that job. We get that after subsequent. There are 10 emperors of Rome until you get to Vespasian. Those are your 10 horns. You have that little horn that pops out. That's the general who ultimately becomes the emperor of Rome and the one who carries off the Jews to exile. You can see that arch in the southern part of Rome to this day. It stands there. But Rome morphs. Rome doesn't stick with Jupiter. By the 4th century, as we enter the 4th century, only about 5% of the Roman Empire is Christian. 95% is not Christian. By the time we're in the year 300, that means after Theodosius' reign, about 50 to 60% of the Roman Empire is Christian. It might even be higher. So by the 4th century, that's a critical time. It's a really horrible time for the Jews. But in the 4th century, the Roman Empire is firmly Christian, and the doctrines of what a Christian must believe are hammered out. There are a number of councils, but it's changing constantly. So you have Nicaea in 325, you have Constantinople in 381. These are very important. Another council in 393, which would be presided over by Augustine, who was the Bishop of Hippo, which today would be Albania. Christianity is going to change. It's going to split. East and West is going to split. After the 4th century is over, East is not going to have one emperor who's going to preside over the East and the West. The East and the West is going to completely split apart in the 11th century in the Great Schism. But that's Edom is not done yet in splitting. It's got a lot of splits ahead. Obviously, the Reformation is another split. So we have changes and changes, but it is ultimately the arch enemy of the Jewish people in everything that is holy, everything that's sacred. But God is, I believe, calling people in the church back because, and today Christians are converting to their heart to the God of Israel because they're blessing Israel. And you notice that the vast majority of those who become B'nai Noach are coming out of that genre of Christianity that is pre-millennial dispensationalist, that is Christian Zionist. So again, like I'm not like getting messages from heaven, like I'm not, like I just look at scripture, but it's impossible to ignore the fact that we have tens of thousands of people who are converting now, who want to convert, who are, as they say in English, plotting to convert. Not that many of them are coming from Hinduism, and not many of them are coming from Roman Catholicism. Those who are doing it for no other reason are generally coming from the Christian Zionist community. And they're blessing Israel, and God is bringing them light and bringing them to the Jewish faith completely, and is driving the church nuts. The church that is against Israel can't stand the Christian Zionism. They hate it, and they know they talk. I just saw a video. They're going nuts about this phenomena. So God is bringing blessing. It's not my job as a Jew or a rabbi to figure out God's plan. I see what he wants me to do, and that is to teach Torah, to be a light to the world. There are today millions of Jews, no doubt, who are among the Gentiles who think they're not Jewish, who really are. Sure. And so I'm just teaching Torah, and that's it. And the rest of it is in God. But we see that God is shedding light to those who at one time cursed our people.
Sure.
God is intervening every step of the way.
So, do y'all have any thoughts before we close out?
So where is Edom these days? Is it associated with the Philistines or?
No, I mean primarily in Jewish tradition with Rome, and so by extension Christianity.
But like the city of Edom, is that?
Oh, probably Petra.
Yeah, I do like he's doing that. There are people out there who they're really Jewish. They just don't know they're Jewish.
Yeah, and I mean a lot. Like the thing is, there were a lot of Edomites who ended up becoming Jewish. So it's one of those things where like some of them ended up becoming pagan, some of them ended up becoming Jewish, but ultimately they always had a close connection to the Israelites.
I mean, next door neighbors. How could you not?
Edom,
yeah.
Edom and Esau, what's the direct connection there? Just
Edom was the name that Esau was given after he had the red stew, which also seems very initiatic. It doesn't seem like it was just lentils.
so he undergoes a name change as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, both brothers do, and then both of the nations carry the second names from the brothers, Edom and Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that's interesting is that you have like you have the nation of Israel. We also have the region of Jezreel, which was like very fertile and connected with this fertility and prosperity. And then you have Edom, which is associated with a red rock potentially of Petra. But yeah. Anyway, on that note, I'm down to talk after, but I think probably going to close this out now so I can get to sleep soon. So, let's see, where is it?
Want to tell the Rebbe the words of the new song that we're singing with Mashiach, right? So I'm just going to read them. Am Yisrael, have no fear. Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now. We don't want to wait. Okay?